So many things going on. It's crazy.
I mean, it rains, it pours, right?
Yes, it does. Welcome back to Truth Hurts, where we expose corrupt politicians and lying corporate media. I'm Jake Duesenberg, your host, broadcasting live from Roseville, Minnesota, in the belly of the beast, the liberal zombie apocalypse of Minneapolis and St. Paul, Minnesota. We have a special interview with Brian Mock, who is a Minnesota J6er who spent up to almost 2 years in federal prison for the crimes he was found guilty of from January 6th. Not on January 6th, yes. But of the events that took place on January 6th, 2021. Joining me as always is MAGA Jesse. How you doing there, buddy?
Yeah, doing good. We got lots of good stuff, and yeah, excited for this interview. And just so people are aware too, Senator Tina Smith has said that she is not going to be running for re-election. I think that opens up the door big time for a potential Liberty candidate to come in there once there's no incumbent. It provides an opportunity. So there's lots of big things happening in Minnesota. So stay tuned.
And, usually when we have a show day, it's like, oh, man, we would love for an interview like this, Brian. Like, we would just love to have all the content be ready for us. Today, we're like, oh, God, we have a full show of other content. But I'm like, we got a schedule. We're going to do it. So we're going to do a show. We're not going to do a show. We're going to create it. We're going to film a clip that we'll probably post later this afternoon. But, Jesse, you might not even know this. So Peggy Flanagan's already announced she's going to run.
Yep.
Okay. Tim Walz is saying that he's looking at doing it. And I don't know if you've seen this. There's a rumor going around right now. I'm not in DFL circles, okay? That Lee Finke might be looking at a run.
That would be nuts. That would be nuts. Yeah, that'd be crazy. If the Senate had a tranny, that would be absolutely nuts. So I don't know. Maybe Walz would go for it. Maybe he wouldn't. Flanagan obviously jumped the gun immediately to make sure that her name is in the picture. Dean Phillips' name is also out there. So this could be a very competitive seat. So people are going to have to keep their eyes glued.
Well, that's 100% competitive, no doubt about it. And Republicans are going to be firing at it too.
Right.
Other news:
Royce White might run again. That's what he talked about before. So it could be very interesting.
Royce versus Finke. Think of all the testosterone in that room.
Oh yeah. Here we go. We got a quick $5 Rumble rant. Let me get to that first. He says, it's O'Bannon says, let me guess, Wednesday Walter has flip-flopped on January 6th too, not an insurrection, so might as well have.
He did.
Right?
Didn't he sign that, whatchamacallit?
I don't know. Was he in the legislature at that time?
The resolution. Yeah, when did they pass that?
I think that was in 2021. So, yeah.
Maybe they did pass it right away. Yeah, we should go back to see who signed that. That's really funny. and calling him Wednesday Walter now. That's a good one.
Yep.
RFK Jr. now
he got confirmed.
Okay. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do a show not a show, I keep saying that, a video clip after this. We'll release it later. And that's going to be about the Never Again bill, which got a hearing today. Lisa Monet testified. We had someone from COVID Justice Minnesota testify, emotional testimony. Jesse, I want to break that down and tell you what's at play there. So we're going to be looking for that video
Jim
later.
Nash could be stalling this legislation. And, meanwhile, they're not stalling the fake Never Again bill. So that's going to be information that you will not want to miss out on.
That's right. And by the way, Brian, we got introduced by Larvita. So speaking of the Never Again bill, someone who was wrongfully targeted by our government, Larvita. She's got, I was going to say brass balls, but I'm pretty sure she is just a female.
I can attest to that, yes.
Oh, jeez. Right off the bat.
Let's.
My God.
Hey,
well, thanks for connecting us, Larvita, by the way. This episode, by the way, if you want to interrupt the same time as you saw from O'Bannon, you can hit that Rumble Rant button. We'll read your comment live on air, or if you have a question for the guest today. We're also brought to you by Warren Wessel of Keller Williams Realty. If you're looking to buy a home or sell a home, give my good friend Warren a call at 612-419-7453. Doesn't only just sing in my church choir, but also a damn good real estate agent. Now, if you're buying a home, look to the good guys at John Galt Mortgage Company to finance that home. You got to finance it through someone, unless you got all that cash hanging around and you want to pay cash for a home. Most of us aren't paying cash for homes. So give them a chance at financing that. Go to johngaltmortgage.com. We're also brought to you by Alpine Cabinetry in St. Cloud, Minnesota. Let's get into it. Brian Mock, welcome to the show. Welcome to the studio. First time meeting you. You look nothing like what someone would assume a Jan's sister looks like. Look, put the video on. And look,
there we go.
Not at all.
Hey.
Comes in with camel, coiled snake shirt, sleeve tattoos. This is blowing my mind. I would never guess you look like that.
Yeah, not your stereotypical insurrectionist. Yeah.
Is that let's start with that. That's what you're being referred to as from the whole left. How do you feel about that term?
At this point, just wear it as a badge of honor. The amount of garbage that I've heard over the last 4 years is unbelievable. So
we know that people during COVID, they call us conspiracy theorists, and now we take it as a badge of honor that conspiracy theorists got it right.
Yep, I'm one of those as well.
Right.
Actually, I probably wouldn't have been at January 6th if it wasn't for all the crazy lockdowns from Walz. So I should thank him for it. And honestly, I'm thankful for having the government hate me so bad that they had to just come up with BS narratives to.
Were you involved in politics prior to like COVID era?
No, I just like to say that I was painfully aware of what was going on out there. I was busy trying to build a business and raise my kids, and I knew what was going on. I did a lot of bitching and moaning, which is what finally led me to actually go on January 6th. It finally got to the point where I told my kids, if I don't go now, I don't have a right to bitch and moan anymore, because that's all it is.
So what was it about January 6th? I mean, obviously it was probably billed as a way to show support for Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. So what was it?
I think Trump called it the Million MAGA March, right?
Yeah, there was one original million MAGA march at one point, and then it kind of progressed from there to the Stop the Steal. I'll tell you a combination of things. One, living in Minneapolis when I watched the Floyd riots actually happen, and watching the BS narrative of that, I wanted to, witness this firsthand. I knew it was going to be historic. And really, it was a chance to watch the Constitution in action, because the reason we were there wasn't to, usurp democracy and instill our great orange dictator. What the goal was to show support to over 100 congressmen and senators who had said that they were going to vote to decertify that election. And at 1 o'clock, Paul Gosar put his objection in. And for the first time ever, on live TV, C-SPAN, CNN, Fox News, all these different organizations were going to be forced to see the actual evidence that existed for the stolen election in 2020. And if at this point, with all we've seen happen over the course of the last couple of weeks, in the last 4 years, if you still think that 2020 was a legit election, just wait a little bit, and we can have a discussion about JFK and how it was actually a magic bullet, because at this point the magic bullet stands up a little firmer than the 2020 election, as far as I'm concerned.
Who was it? Was it Congressman Luna?
Yeah, Paulina Luna.
Yeah, that mentioned already, looking at the report, that references 2 shooters.
Yeah.
It's like, the interesting thing about that is, like, everyone knows it. If you've studied the JFK assassination, you kind of know it already.
Yeah.
But
what next? The CIA was involved?
Hear it now with someone that had looked at the evidence, that was restricted from the public. It's crazy.
Yeah, I've stood where JFK got shot, and you look at where that window is positioned, and it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense from the trajectory point of view. So I hope that we finally get the true answers from the government, but obviously we got the deep state who's going to cover up anything surrounding this, because it's crazy for the American people to realize that our government killed our president.
Brad Ganser pipes in, 1 shooter.
Yeah.
Of course he'd say that. My perspective on Trump is, did they cheat? Did the Democrats or deep state, did they cheat in the election? Did they steal the election? My spidey sense is yes, but the evidence is not forthcoming. Did they rig the election? 100% they rigged the election. You change in many states in the name of COVID election laws. In Minnesota, this happened, like not requiring witness signatures on ballots, on absentee ballots, changing it so that anyone can vote, right? Drop boxes all of a sudden pop up. Even more importantly, the FBI going to Facebook saying, bury this story on the Hunter Biden laptop. That was a rigged election, 100%. I just don't know the cheating. Like I think there was cheating. It just seems like when you watch like 2,000 Mules, which seems to be at this point refuted, it's like, I don't think we uncovered it, but maybe it was there. Trump certainly wasn't able to answer that on Joe Rogan's podcast, so he doesn't seem to.
Here's one for you, though. If Mo Brooks, who had been a rep from Alabama, had been knee deep in election integrity since like the 90s. And he came out and stated, look, here's the deal. 60% turnout in election, as you guys know, 60% is a good election, right?
Right.
70% you start questioning if there's fraud. 80% is basically a guarantee of fraud. Go look at all the counties that Biden won in that election. They were all 90 plus. I believe it was 100+% of Wisconsin showed up. You couldn't offer free cheese and beer and get 100% of Wisconsin to show up and vote. So yeah, you start putting all those things together.
But see, once again, you put those things together. It's like, but the evidence, you have to have evidence.
Yeah.
And this is the thing is, so they rigged the election to really favor the Democrats, hence why there was more participation. So
But you almost need to be on the inside to be able to discover all of the voter fraud. You have to be a Secretary of State who's able to, go through all of the data and notice, any odd people, any people that don't have a matching social security number. There's all kinds of things that you could find: dead people, illegal immigrants. So you'd have to almost be a Secretary of State to be able to really uncover the fraud.
Okay, but either way, like standing here today, thinking of this through doesn't put us in the context of January of 2021. Yeah. We certainly all witnessed the rigging of election, and a lot of us were frustrated. So that was the reason you went out to D.C.? Was it the election, or you kind of alluded to also the lockdowns?
Yeah, it was really to stand there and show support for those congressmen. I wanted to look out that window and see a million of us standing out there supporting that this should go back to the states, which is, constitutional provision, that this goes back to the states. They had 10 days, it was either 10 or 14, to go through, look at the evidence themselves and make that decision. This wasn't, an illegal act. This was an act of standing up to support our Constitution, and we wanted to see it in real time. This was going to be significant. This was going to be historic. I was right about that. But yeah, we showed up, and it was peaceful.
You keep saying we, so who were you with?
I guess the collective we, but me and my best friend, he came in from Montana. And
did you guys drive out there?
Drove across the country.
Are you affiliated with any group? At this point?
No. I'm affiliated with me. My girl I was dating for about a month jumped in the vehicle with us last minute, and the three of us tooled across the country. I drove through the night. We got there on the 5th, got a hotel room, and then about 6 in the morning we showed up over by the Washington Monument.
Okay, so how did you see that day working out? Like, what did you think you were going to be doing?
We'd go there around the ellipse, do the typical rally stuff of sit and talk to people, listen to speeches, pray, chant, sing, and then have our walk down to the Capitol. We knew we were going to the Capitol. There were 6 permits to be there. That was always the destination.
Was there like a Facebook group? Was there an extra organization that was organizing it?
6 of them, actually.
Okay.
So there's 6 separate permits of groups to be there. It was spread widely.
But you say that, but was there one in particular that you were following?
Oh, I don't even remember at this point, quite frankly. There wasn't any one that I was into, and everybody knew that, hey, we're going to this thing and this is how it's gonna work, and we'll go down to the Capitol. Sure. So the idea that, and then of course after the fact they wanted to pin it on Trump, like he told people to go. He had said in that speech, I know you all are going to be walking down to the Capitol, that he was going to come with us, and then the peacefully and patriotically have your voices heard.
Yeah. La 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 la. We didn't hear that. La, la, la.
And then why do you think Trump didn't speak at the Capitol? Then was it just too chaotic? What do you think the reasoning was, if being on the ground, for why Trump didn't come to the Capitol after that?
I just think logistics, to have that many people in Secret Service try to figure all that out was just, I grew up right outside of D.C., so I kind of know how it works with that. So it wasn't, this was my city. This would be like you guys going down to Minneapolis on a regular basis. So the logistics of that, if you move the president, you're talking weeks of preparation, and to do that
it's
in
chaos
an impromptu
when they don't have
thing.
that.
Yeah.
Right.
Not... Even if he could jump over the seat and steal the wheel, and just, I had this vision of Trump like stealing a vehicle and flying down there.
I mean, we actually witnessed this guy get shot at once, and I don't think he could handle it a better way.
Right?
I mean, you love the left. They're like, oh, he put people at risk by staying around and standing up and saying fight. He should let them just carry him off the way. I'm like, That was a message to a lot of Americans going, stand up and fight. That's pretty damn important.
It was a badass moment. Yeah. Let's be real.
You can't look at that and not say that was badass.
I was sitting there watching that from rec in Sanson's prison up the way, and literally every single person that we had about 500-600 inmates crammed in rec staring at the TV, and all of them, every single one of them was just in awe of the president that day. It was pretty cool.
I mean, I think you got to be people suffer from Trump derangement syndrome, so I get it. I mean, that's a condition. It's a real condition. But if you're a reasonable minded person, because you got the MAGA people like Jesse, like Trump's 5D chess all the time. But if you're just like, I think, like, I wasn't always a Trump guy.
The Zuckerbergs, you know.
Yeah, the Zuckerberg's a great case, yeah.
Right, there's all kinds of people that have come around to Trump and realize, I mean, he's undeniably tough. The polling is out there, and, so I think, the assassination attempt definitely changes people's minds over him because it's just so epic to stand up and say fight in front of the crowd, and you know, even the crowd's not even scared. You can see people in the back; they're all just they don't
one dude's
care.
Looking around, he's like,
right? You know, they're more worried about being present in that moment than anything else.
Yeah. Okay, so you head over to the Capitol. So you were watching Trump speak, and then you head over to the Capitol.
Yep. Towards the tail end of it, there, it was hard to hear from where we were at because it was so many people. That's one of the things.
Not a million though.
Actually,
there are a lot of people.
Check out the actual overhead on that.
Just give it credit.
You probably are, I think the estimates they were about 1.435.
Yeah,
was where they were at for that. It was massive.
I always take what the media tells me for numbers and
all. Oh well, in that case,
I love it when Mark was doing those COVID things at the Capitol, and they're like a couple hundred people show up. I'm like, I was there. It was thousands. What are you guys talking about?
The first time I ever experienced that, I showed up when I always say this was my first rally, but I'd once shown up when the Tea Party first became a thing. Me and a buddy went down just to check it out at the Capitol here, and we saw them flying helicopters above way early on because we screwed up the times. We were there way early, and there was maybe a couple hundred people there, and that's what they showed on TV. And meanwhile, there were, I mean, thousands, probably 10,000 people showed up, and absolutely not showing that. So it was similar with this. I mean, it was, again, growing up in D.C., I'd never seen that many people from the Capitol to the White House. It's about a mile. Yeah. It was wall to wall people the entire way down, plus the huge crowds at either end when we got to the Capitol. So it was massive.
Okay, so you get to the Capitol. So what happens? How does this end up where you're inside of the U.S. Capitol?
Well, I never went in the building. I'm one of the 81 worst of the worst offenders of January 6th. For a 5-minute span, never went in the Capitol and never damaged anything. Okay. So I told you your opinion of this might change a little bit once you hear what I have to say.
All right, let's get into it.
When we get there, I have to take a moment to explain what happened just before I got there because I've watched probably more video than anyone you'll ever meet, but there's probably 5 people in this country that have watched more video about Jan 6 than I have.
Sure. Well, your life's on the line with us.
Well, also when I was in D.C., they opened up the evidence.com database to us. I think they screwed up when they did it. So I had unfettered access that almost nobody has seen. So actually, when I got out and was interviewing lawyers, I was offered a job from a legal firm because they realized I had seen more information. I was able to just start handing them information. Not only helped me, but helped their other clients. So there's 120 missing minutes from the Jan 6 official report. What you will see as you learn about January 6th is there's an initial breach by Ryan Samsel, the Ray Epps thing where he whispers in his ear. Right. This was an outer perimeter.
Which at this point I still don't believe there's a real answer to that whole thing. You know, that lawsuit just mysteriously went away. Like Ray Epps is no longer suing Fox News.
Right.
That is so fascinating to me. And video of everyone going fed the night before, and he's at the initial breach point, and all of a sudden CBS, who's been telling us for years how bad the J6ers are, they're the ones that find Ray Epps and his wife who are in hiding, and all of a sudden it's not about the guy who's at the initial breach point that was saying we should go in the Capitol. He's all of a sudden a hero, the victim. Right? I'm like, what? Dude, you can't keep lying to us this bad.
And not only that, throughout the course of the day up on the Lower West Terrace, he's sitting there leading and instigating things throughout the day. So there's a whole thing of Ray Epps getting followed. That I think is just a distraction, quite frankly.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I really do. There were definitely agents within there undercover.
They've had to admit it at this point.
Well, actually, I was the one that leaked. We had to sign a protective order that said that we wouldn't release any of our evidence. They wouldn't give it to us unless we signed that. When I got out of the gulag, I leaked it to the Epic Times. That was the article that came out that said that they had, I found the ops manual from the 3 days of the rallies, and it had in there that, yes, we have undercover agents, and they're identified by a rainbow wristband that they had on. I leaked it, the Epic Times ran it, it blew up, and all of a sudden Christopher Wray had to come back into Congress and admit that he lied to him. Yeah. So I actually, with the
Or did he lie? Didn't he just say we can't comment?
Oh yeah. Oh no. It was a lie as much as you could actually get someone to admit to Congress that they lied.
Yeah, but James Clapper literally lied and said that they weren't spying or collecting data on American citizens, and nothing came of it. Chris Wray is like, well, we can't comment on that.
Yeah.
Okay, so then they're agents.
First it was 0, then we can't comment on it. Yeah. Oh, then it's 20, but we've never seen any information as to what they had. So, so in that day, what happened is there was this one little breach, but it was the outer snow fence, right? Where if you know DC, there's snow fencing set up all the time. And then they put a couple bike racks there. Now, basically, that snow fence is around on a regular basis on different areas. It's basically like keep off the grass, is essentially it. But then there's these big sidewalks that are open. So what happened on this is people went through this. Initially, they came up to the Lower West Terrace, and they're standing there in front of a bunch of Capitol Police officers, the ones that are clad all in riot gear, ones who handle this on a regular basis. And they're sitting there, social distancing, about 6 feet apart, just having a conversation. And that was the one that I had him pull up on video there, where they're literally standing there. There's nothing happening. Now, if you followed the narrative, it was right after that breach. What happened is we all came flooding through, foaming at the mouth, insurrectionists trying to get in the Capitol. The next thing you see is this breach of the Capitol. What they won't show you is the 120 minutes where the police literally beat the shit out of old men and women and fired upon us. So the way that this...
Do you know why? It does sometimes matter in the sequence of events who punched first.
Yep. No, I know exactly what happened.
Okay.
We've got it all on video. We've been trying to get the world to see this.
Okay.
Is that that same Ryan Samsel and 2 other guys got in a little pushing match with a Capitol Police officer on the Lower West Terrace.
Okay.
Now, this was U.S. Capitol Police. They're trained to handle this, and they were handling it. So if you have a giant crowd at a protest, it's not uncommon for someone to get pushing, someone to throw something. Stuff pops off. People are pissed off, right? So that's what happened, is a little pushing match, and the Capitol Police were handling it. The Metro Police had shown up. The Capitol Police officers, the main, I don't know what level of brass, had said he was about to pull the Capitol Police inside, but then the Metro PD showed up. And they came up top and were set up. They brought a whole bunch of munitions. Now, these aren't the guys who are trained to handle these situations. These are bike cops, and they're actually notoriously known in D.C. for violence. They have a massive amount of lawsuits against them for excessive violence. And so they were up top with rubber bullets and pepper balls lined up, aiming at the crowd. And one of these, somebody in command ordered up, as soon as there was this little bit of pushing, instead of just letting it die down, told them to open fire. And they literally sat up there and started opening fire.
And you're witnessing this, or is this something you've seen in video
just before I showed up, they started doing this.
Oh, so you show up to the Capitol and the thing's kind of
This is starting to pop off. So they shoot down in the crowd.
Get in your frame of mind at that time. You see this stuff happening, and you still advance towards the Capitol?
Well, here's the thing, is you couldn't see that. It's Capitol Hill.
Okay.
When people are set up on that Lower West Terrace and down in the grass, all you see is the backs of people.
So you're just saying you viewed this video so many times now you kind of got that.
Yeah, we know exactly what happened. So they start shooting, and the Metro PD comes down off of the scaffolding and down below, and they start pulling bike racks out. Now, there's these famous videos of people pulling bike racks away and going through these barriers. Yep. Those barriers didn't exist at first. What they did is they pulled out these barriers and started passing them to the Capitol PD and telling them to use them as weapons and start pushing them into the crowd. So what happened is, as we came up about this time, came up this walkway, it kind of became like a river of people. It's just pushing you. You're going, and you get up there. So we come out on the lower west terrace and pop out, and all of a sudden, it's this guy's just bleeding out of his face. I watch an old man getting clubbed in front of me. A woman goes to try to help him, and she gets clubbed by a cop. And we're going, what the hell? And the next thing I know, we get a grenade gets thrown and blows up by us. And I get hit by the thing. I'm going, whoa, what the hell? You know, all of a sudden we went from peaceful protest into this war zone, and the cops are spraying people down with OC spray. We've got women, kids, old men in this crowd, and everybody's peaceful. And we're literally begging the police, because I got pushed up towards the front of this line. You know, as tear gas comes in, you get pushed. You kind of triage people, grab some water, you know, dump it in people's eyes. It's all this chaos going on around. But meanwhile, it was weird because there'd be a pause, and we'd be all talking to the police going, stop, stop, stop. We're not here for violence. Please stop hurting us. And this goes on for this over an hour.
So one of the people prosecuted in Minnesota, Dawson, will you pull up real quick the A2? This is from Fox 9. Scroll down. This shows all the people that were prosecuted in Minnesota. You could see third to the bottom is Victoria White. Have you met Victoria?
Yeah, I've talked to her a number of times.
Okay, so there's actually video of her out there saying, "Do not go in. This is not our people." She ended up sadly pleading guilty to 24 months probation. Sees the writing on the wall. This is just devastating to her. We've tried to have her on the show. Would still love to have her on the show. You end up being on there, the one that was found guilty. Everyone else that took a plea deal or have trials pending, and the longest sentence to 33 months in jail, or at least that's what you're sentenced to. So it's fascinating. And then there's also a video, and I'm pretty convinced that they wanted to get Alex Jones. You know who that is, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so Alex Jones is infamously on many videos, thank God to him, right? Saying, do not go in there. These are not our people. I think he might even allude to them being feds. Because, like, if he didn't do that and he's got a bullhorn, they're going to pin it on him.
Oh, he was done.
They found another way to pin it on him, right? So, or not J6, but, you know, the Sandy Hook thing to try to take him down.
They still went after Owen Schroyer.
Right, yeah. Owen ends up in jail for that.
Right.
Do you know Owen, by the way?
Doing. I haven't met him, obviously know all his stuff. But basically.
So in your head at that moment, you're going to the Capitol just kind of as a show of a large gathering, and you end up not knowingly in the middle of basically chaos.
Yeah. And so what was going on again is we were trying to ask them to leave. One group kind of broke off to the left, and as you know, the Jacob Chansley with the horns, right? Number of the Proud Boys.
By the way, I got to say something.
Yeah.
The narrative started falling apart real quick on J6, but Michael Knowles from Daily Wire. Have you ever seen the interview with him?
Not what you expected.
Not what I expected. I was like, this is the crazy guy.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh shit. I mean, I don't necessarily agree and see the world the same way as him.
Right.
But I'm like, he's not an idiot.
Yeah, right.
It's like,
exactly.
Interesting dude.
Well, that's what you find when you go across the board at these, when you look at what they claim people did, or even how they acted in response to things. You're like, that was you? Wait a minute. Okay, this doesn't track. And there's some guys that are extremely intelligent that I've met through all this. Very well spoken, and from all walks of life. Like I was in there with this geologist who's got PhD, and he's in there for these quote unquote violent assaults. I'm going, how does that track?
Right.
But yeah, it's
Ashley Babbitt was a Navy or a Air Force officer, I think.
Yep. Yeah. And actually, I just was at the house in D.C. where Mom's at. No Mickey. So and that's one that we always say, and until there's justice for Ashley Babbitt, we don't stop fighting, because she was flat out murdered by Byrd. But yeah, I mean, basically what was happening there is we were trying to get these officers to leave, and what triggered everything into real quote unquote violence was when they literally pushed this old woman down the stairs. with shields, took a riot shield and blasted this woman down these stairs. And she got up defiantly. I'll give her credit. She gets up, walks back up the stairs, and stands in front of them like this. They spray her with mace in the face and blast her again with the shield, and she goes flying down the stairs.
So from your perspective, there's excessive police force.
Oh, absolutely. There's no question. They literally unleashed all of the munitions they had upon people, and what they were doing was sandwiching them together.
Why do you think that happened?
Combination of things. One, it was a setup, which I know for a fact because I've seen the evidence that exists. Pelosi set this up with Milley and the FBI. Number of other ones in there, Schumer. It's a fact at this point. We watched what they did to make sure that the conditions were met, that this would happen. This will come out when we go through investigations. That's what I'm currently trying to do, is get an investigation by about a dozen people that I know who are J6ers and investigators. We have piled together more evidence than it will curl your toes when we put it together. My goal right now, why I'm going back to D.C. this coming week, I was just there. We're lining up the meetings to have with the Oversight and Judiciary Committee to launch these, and we want us involved, actually, if not directly running it, having a big chunk of this. I can tell you 100%, I came out of jail when I made bond. I was one of the only ones to make bond out of D.C. once I got denied. When I got out, the very first podcast I went on, I said, Nancy Pelosi is directly responsible for what happened on January 6th. I have proof. My TikTok was banned because I said that and was ready to go live with that information. They don't want this coming out. We have it. We'll be showing it to the world soon.
Here's my take right now. So, there's clearly a deep state, and it's being exposed by Doge, which is great. The funnel of money and the lies and stuff, and to the point where it's racking up hundreds of billions of dollars, right? I mean, of course, we know the deep state exists through the CIA and other things too, right? They sell drugs and they make a off-budget, millions, right? So we know this kind of stuff exists. There just seems obvious. It's been so obvious in the last 4 years. It's almost like it had to be this way, that Trump lost in 2020 and then justice is served in 2024. Because if you had any doubts about it, then you watch 4 indictments with 90-some charges against the sitting president. They ban him from doing business in New York. I mean, you can't convince me that there's no real legit assassination attempts on the president since Reagan, and all of a sudden there's 2.
Right.
And one where there's shots and it nicks his ear. Yeah. Right? So it's like they want him dead. They want him out of the way, right? They need him out of the way. What was puzzling to me after his first term is like he didn't drain the swamp. So why? Like can't you work with Trump? And now it's like, well, now we get 3 weeks of the second Trump, and I go, oh, that's why, because look what he's doing. Yeah. And they must have had a calculation. He's going to do it, and they're going to dispose of this guy. And so January 6th to me was, well, who's the biggest threat to the deep state, the status quo out in Washington, D.C.? It's not the Tea Party anymore. Tea Party died. Yep. It's the MAGA movement. I mean, Trump is the big face of it, and he's a problem for them. But in the end of the day, Trump is neutered if the MAGA movement's killed. And we know people, Republicans, that gave up on Trump because of January 6th. And then there's a lot of people like, I don't know where you were, Jesse, necessarily right away, but to me, it's like, well, this is really bad for the looks and stuff. And then you slowly start seeing what's going, and you're being revealed. Hey, this thing seemed like a setup. Yeah, that's where I'm at now. It's like this was a setup, and it's because they had to kill the MAGA movement. Yep. And it didn't work, by the way. That's the interesting thing. Well, and but to you, it put you in prison.
Oh yeah. Well, and before prison, it was getting detained. I was released by the Minnesota magistrate when they brought the initial charges. Before I could get released, they appealed it to D.C. and put it in front of Chief Judge Beryl Howell, who's this evil lefty activist judge. She literally screamed at me in court, called me a leader in all this, said I was single-handedly responsible for making America a laughingstock, and that there were no conditions that could be placed upon me where the general public would be safe if I was released.
Right.
And my charges were 2 alleged pushes. I never went in the building, never destroyed anything, and I'm like, this, and that's when it started to dawn on me. Like, it took to that point to realize, like, oh, they're blaming me for this. Like, they're actually, I always thought, like, hey, when I found out I was on this list, it was 3 weeks before they came and got me. I tried to go talk to the FBI, and they wouldn't talk to me.
Yeah.
And I figured I'd go in there and go, okay, I'm not a militia member. I'm not one of the Proud Boys. I'm not an Oath Keeper. Like, I didn't go in the building. I didn't destroy anything. Literally, the only thing that I did is I pushed a shield. I pushed a shield when an officer threatened to shoot me. And I found the video of the body cam of the guy next to him. And you hear, or I'll shoot at the end of it. And his hand comes off his shield and comes down like this. And I panicked and just took a step forward and pushed his shield.
Let's
and the guy fell. That was my.
I want to get into I want to get into some of the things that they alleged that you did and was brought up in trial and all that kind of stuff. But I want to get that to the point where you're actually in trial, because I think the interesting thing is, at least from your perspective, you go to the Capitol that day thinking that you're going to be part of this show of a million people that says we're not fine with how this election went, which is your right as an American citizen to do.
Allegedly.
And well, yeah, right. Oh, although during COVID, if you're protesting, you know, George Floyd's thing, all of a sudden COVID protocols don't apply to you, and you know the governor's mandates. Isn't that interesting? Yeah. So, and then you end up in the middle of this thing. So we'll get back into that story because that gets brought up in court. You come back home. You end up leaving that day. Yep. And you get back in the vehicle with the people you came with and head home.
Yep.
Okay. And so this is January 2021. What do you do? What like you go back to your job? What's your job at the time? Family? So, what's that all like?
Yeah, I was vice president of sales and marketing for a landscape company that I helped build up, you know, from the ground up, basically, in the western suburbs here. I was making a good income at the time, good six-figure income, and you know, winter's dead time, so that's why I was able to go. And then we get back. There's a few, I would say about a month in there. Maybe two, where I was still a little bit active online on Facebook and stuff like that, trying to tell people, hey, what you saw on TV was BS. You know, watching Biden slowly destroy our country, or rather quickly at that time. But then, yeah, I get into my regular season. It's, you know, spring's starting to roll around. It gets busy for me, and I'm off and working. And then come May, I get a phone call from my ex that says, hey, I got a call from the FBI, and you're on this insurrection hunters list where they had nicknamed me Amoral Combat. And I've got these pictures of me, and I'm like, yep, that's me. Crap, they didn't, you know, train me what to do when I'm on an FBI list in high school or college. So I freaked out, called an attorney. He said, well, $250,000 to get started. And I said, that's cute. What are my other options? He says, well, I'd call to the public defender's office in D.C., and that's when this whole thing started, where she goes, well, you know, did you ever touch an officer? I said, well, dude threatened to shoot me. And this is what I told her right off the bat. Like, my story's never changed because it's the truth. And I said, I touched a shield and this guy fell. And she's like, oh, like they're definitely going to charge you with this. I'm like, what? They made it seem like there was all this violence going on. And I actually even bought into some of the crap that they were showing, like, oh, it must have been worse where I didn't see it. There must have been these things going on. Now that I've had 4 years to dive in and see it, I'm like, oh no, they literally just made this crap up, because that one little push, they literally manufactured a dozen charges and tried to come at me at a sentencing guideline range of 20 years that they made up off of one push into a shield on a split-second reaction.
Okay, so you're did you say wife or girlfriend?
Girlfriend. Okay. Oh, sorry, ex-wife. Called me about that. Yeah,
ex-wife.
Yeah, I need a flow chart to keep track of all the.
No,
the
that's
exes.
right. And you got a son at least.
Four boys.
Children with her.
Two different baby mamas, two ex-wives. You know, I'm a slow learner, so.
Right. So you end up. So that phone call comes in. What do you do then?
After my initial freak out, that's when I called the lawyer, called that, and then I asked them, hey, can we just talk with the FBI? She tried to call them. They said,
this is a public defender in
This is,
DC?
Public defender, actually head of the public defender's office out of D.C. She called them. I was going to go in, like, whatever, we just have a talk. I figured we have a talk.
To the Minneapolis office?
Yeah. Okay. And they said, no, we don't have a warrant. We're not going to talk to them. Okay. Well, 3 weeks later, they come screeching up in front of my house at 6 a.m. when I'm going out to go to a job to finish up. And took me into custody, and at first they're freaking out. I think I kind of freaked them out because I was all nonchalant about it. I was like, what took you all so long? I've been waiting for you. And I said, I would have come down there and seen you. I said, that's not how we do it. And after a couple of minutes of talking to me and realizing who I was, they were cool with me. Let me smoke a couple cigarettes. I've quit since, but have a couple cigarettes. And they were like, dude, you're going to be in and out of here. Basically, you should be released, and I'll tell them that you were cooperative and all that. And I should have been. But that's when my life became fiction, and they put me in front of that chief judge.
Okay, so how did they find out about your whereabouts at that point?
There were a number of things. The girlfriend that I went with posted a whole bunch of stuff on Facebook, so she had a bunch of people initially turn us into the FBI, and then my son, I feel like it was through my ex-wife more than him, but he had ended up being upset with me for going. I had told him, I said, I don't know if I'll be back, and kind of gave him instructions on what to do if something went wrong, because Antifa had been at so many of these rallies. People were getting stabbed and shot and beat up. And I said, I don't know if I come back because of that. If the worst thing happens, I'm not trying to look for anything. I'm not trying to go start a fight, but you never know what the hell happens. And, who knew what could have happened on January 6th? Who knows what blew up from that? I'd even said jokingly, I don't know if my government ends up opening fire on us or arresting all of us when we go there. And I wasn't far off from both of those things. They did, in fact, open fire on us, and they did, in fact, come and arrest us all. So, that's where we were at.
Where would you have got that idea from?
43 years on the planet at that point, and watching our government, the way they were acting, the way that they were coming after us.
But you still went, even thinking that was a possibility.
Yep. Because, again, they had gone too far at this point. And I had said that if I don't stand up now, I have no right to bitch in the future.
How's your son at that point?
19, I want to say, the oldest.
Okay, so he's a grown adult then.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
So
I think the New York Times wrote an article about you guys, and then they, you said you thought it was an okay article, or at least.
Yeah, it was decent. Yeah. It wasn't propaganda.
Right.
There were some things.
There's a lot of propaganda out there.
A little bit.
All right,
but it was fair.
So they bring you in to the Minneapolis office, I assume then.
Yep.
And then you think you're gone by that day. Well, then what happens?
Well, they transferred me over to Sherburne County, the federal holding facility there, and I went in front of the magistrate. I think they love to pick you up on a Friday, so they make you sit through the weekend until Monday to see them. And she orders me released before we ever got out of the hearing. They appeal it to D.C. I had to do that via Zoom, and she denies me the bond. So I got to fly Con Air, shackled up, and put on a plane with real convicts.
Wait, so you spend the weekend in jail, and then this happens, you're saying?
Oh, yeah. Well, I had to sit in Sherburne for like a month or two.
Well, you just went right through a month, huh?
Yeah, sat there in Sherburne.
You sat in Sherburne for a month because D.C. said
I can't be released because the general public would not be safe if I was released.
Okay. You had a prior at this point, right?
Yep.
What was the prior?
The prior was back when in 2009. There was a party going on for my kid. Long, crazy story. Basically, I had a BB gun in my pocket when I stopped some kids from committing arson behind my house.
And what were you charged with?
Well, they charged me initially. The teenagers had claimed that I had pointed a gun at them. That had never happened, and we had witnesses to that, and their story had never matched. What ultimately they charged me with was three counts of assault. Once the story actually came out of what it was, again, you're talking about prosecutors not letting something go. This one was a Republican prosecutor who refused to let it go because he had political aspirations and wanted to look tough on crime. So he refused to drop the charges. He was actually brought in after my initial prosecutor was ready to drop everything and give me a misdemeanor. She left office before she was able to finalize the paperwork. New guy comes in, tough on crime Republican, wanted it wouldn't let it go. So I ended up taking a direct plea to the judge and pled out to an assault. My assault was having a BB gun in my pocket that someone could have seen, and because they could have seen it, that constituted an assault.
What degree? Was it a felony?
It was
assault?
a felony. I had to plead out to a felony assault, and I regretted it.
The facts of the case is it was a BB gun.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So
which they accepted and all that.
Anything else like other than like traffic violations on your record prior to that?
I had a disorderly conduct that I pleaded out to when I was dealing with all this because an ex-wife.
How much
was
in
trying
advance
to get
was
in my
that?
house. What's that?
When did that happen?
Oh, I mean, this was like 15 years before all this. Yeah.
Okay. Not a felony?
No.
Obviously?
No. Nope.
So you could understand a disorderly conduct felony assault, you know, that you're not your typical, you know, person that's first-time offender. They would look at you at that point.
Yeah, I mean, if and regardless, like there were people that they locked up that were, you know, first-time offenders. But even with that, you know, decade-old, you know, felony, with the facts of it, like that didn't even come into play. Like they couldn't even use that as a sentencing enhancement the way that the federal government
Yeah,
works.
but I'm saying, you know, you're talking about they held you. It's like, well, you do have, you know, a violent felony on your account. Well, you could do that, but that's what it says, right?
Yeah. However,
and you pled to it too.
Okay,
so.
but however, there's also a magistrate when they release you. The only reason for denying bond is if there is somebody that has an articulable threat against them. If you just have like whatever charges, you're supposed to make bond unless you go, hey, yeah, this person threatened to kill me if they get out. Then they're going, okay, wait a minute, let's look at this. Otherwise, it's a flight risk. Neither of these existed there. And actually, they had doctored up some stuff to try to make that as the case, to say that I was a threat to a witness there. The girlfriend that I went with, that I would be a threat to her. So we actually exposed them later on. That's how I made bond.
Why would they have made that up? Like, I don't understand.
They wanted to hold me. So here's the whole deal.
Did you have, you're saying that they never said you were a flight risk, right?
Correct.
So they couldn't use that logic, you're saying.
But you're saying possibly a threat to your girlfriend? Did you guys have like problems at the time? Is that why?
Yeah, no. No, they literally just made it up. Like they wanted to come up with a reason. So they said, hey, they tried to flip her as a witness to come back and testify against me, which never worked out for them.
But I'm confused. Like, how would they've even? I could understand them making stuff up, but like, to have any bit of believability, she wasn't like turned against you at that point.
No. Here's what they did: is the FBI goes in and asks them questions. They ask very pointed questions, and then what they do is they write this 302 report when they meet with someone. And what it is it's the FBI agents' take on these questions. So they asked her. They went to her. Now, I had broken up with her at this point, so we weren't even together. She goes to her and she says, would you feel threatened if Mr. Mock was released, was the question. She says, well, maybe slightly, because he might think I turned him in. That was then used.
Well, yes, I would see why.
that was then used as he's coming after her. It's this articulable threat. I didn't have that. And then they made up this thing with like, hey, I had shown up to her house multiple times afterwards, which I had text messages that showed that this didn't happen. Like they just made this whole narrative up.
Well,
and went to her to try to.
Plus, ex-boyfriend showing up to ex-girlfriend's house isn't the greatest crazy thing that I've ever heard of, you know?
Right, but they just, this was the things that they were trying to come up with to go, okay, let's try to paint this guy as this crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly seems like they want to go a route, no doubt about that. But I'm just saying, like, you know, it's hard for me to look at you and go, oh, some innocent party here. Like, you got priors, that statement makes a difference, so... Okay, so anyhow,
well,
that
I'll give you the other one for you. Is they said, I'll give you the other statement they used against me on this. That I was home bragging about beating the shit out of cops was one of the things they said.
Yeah, we did come across that too.
Here's the interesting
on social
thing
media.
of that.
It said.
Yep, that's what they claimed. It never existed, because the end of the statement said he's at home bragging about beating the shit out of the cops, and going into the building and destroying things. They left off the 2/3 that I could prove had never happened.
So you're saying the whole thing was a joke, just like
no, it was made up.
Oh, you didn't even say the first thing on social media? There's no social media?
No, there wasn't. This was somebody they said
you
said
said
this.
you were on social media, right? Though you were saying that you were calling different things corrupt and whatnot, but you're saying you weren't bragging about, pushing cops or anything.
Not at all. They made that up, and I could
Because
prove
they say
it.
6 cops. I think that's the thing that I had read, that they say you were bragging, but obviously I didn't see anything linked to a social media post. So you're saying none of that's out there.
There was just a statement that they said someone made that I was home bragging about beating the crap out of cops, going in the building and destroying things. So 2/3 of the statement were obviously completely false because they never even.
Did you ever think about just rapping about it instead, and then you're off free?
Yeah, exactly. Had I blamed
F
Trump,
the police.
well, here's what they were trying to do. Just so this makes it real clear, what they wanted us to do when they put us in the DC gulag was they literally tortured us in there. I mean, I was tortured by my government.
Okay,
but
so let's go back. This is a very interesting story. I don't think a lot of people get a sneak peek on how this all goes down. So you're in Sherburne for about the fortress for about a
few months.
A few months.
Yeah.
Okay. Then they put you on Con Air.
They middle of the night because they don't warn you beforehand because you might try to escape or plan an escape.
Steve, you sent me on the flight.
Yep. So yeah, right.
I mean,
exactly.
I like literally I can't think of Con Air without.
Yeah.
Just think my hair's growing out, and I'm doing it for my daughter. I've got my little stuff.
Yeah.
So how close is that movie? Is it a big plane like that too?
The funny thing is, it's just like a basic your typical jet that you'd get on to fly somewhere. Just minus the stewardess. So it's funny. So you get in there and you're all shackled, but the dude they bring in that they sat next to me is literally tattooed head to foot, and it's a skull tattoo on him. And this guy's definitely been in prison for. You don't ask a lot of questions at that point. You keep your eyes straight, and if someone does talk, you do a lot of grinning and nodding, and just sounds good.
Who gave you that advice? Did you just come across that, or did someone give you a little advice on that one?
No, that's just self-preservation instincts kicking in right
instincts
there.
Kick, I imagine.
You figure
Brad Ganser says John Malkovich. I forgot. Yeah, Malkovich was the mastermind in that one. Cyrus the Virus says K-Wall for life. What a great movie. Now I got to go watch that again.
There you go. No, it's a great cast, too.
Oh, so dynamite cast.
Yeah,
Steve Buscemi's the really dangerous one, which is so funny.
Right.
God, he played
of course
that role
he
so
is.
good. All right, so they fly you to
Oklahoma City.
Oklahoma City, okay.
So, which Oklahoma City is the way station for getting transported across the country. They put you there till they get enough people for a flight to wherever. So that's a central hub, which was actually closed down for COVID. So they sent me to Grady County, Oklahoma, which you just have to experience. The water's brown. They put you in this room. So they're pie-shaped wedges of the way these rooms work, with like a command kind of in the center with a hallway around it. So they put you in there, and it's 10 bunks, 3 high, 30 dudes, 2 toilets, 1 for 1, 1 for 2, and one shower. And literally the TV's on the entire time. I've never seen so many drugs in my life. I was asked immediately before I even put my all my stuff down, hey, do you smoke? I'm like, can I get a rack first here? Because
people are trying to bum cigarettes off you.
Oh no, they're trying to sell me stuff.
Oh, gotcha.
So like I said, so many drugs. The guards are all corrupt. They're all making money off it.
Oh sure.
So they literally put you in there. There's fights. It's ridiculous. So I spent 2 weeks there. Looked like a Guatemalan prison, and then I get shipped to DC. Now, unbeknownst to me, I didn't know there was anybody else there. I didn't know there was any J6ers. I thought it was me alone. I might run into another one. And so I get there, and they put me in Gen Pop. Now, I was supposed to be in an individual pod with just J6ers. There was 120 men of color and me. When I first brought me in there, the guards go, oh, you, look over, there's a orderly standing there, and three other black dudes. Goes, yeah, this guy's racist, extremist, and dangerous. Put him down there. And I'm like,
wow.
They say that like in front of these
dudes?
dudes?
Right in front of it. I got these three dudes off the street in D.C. looking me up and down. I'm like, no, I didn't say it. That's not me at all. So I'm like, well, this is where I die. And so they put me down in the cell. It's 22 and 2. So 22 hours in your cell, 2 hours out.
Jeez.
They just popped the cell randomly one day, or 1 hour. I just start fighting immediately, like that. dude steps in, so you're fighting for your life. It's the worst.
Do you have any experience of fighting in your background?
No. I mean, yeah, I mean, not since high school.
How old are you at this time?
42 at that point.
Were you an athlete at all?
I played football in high school and lacrosse, and I was a landscaper, so I wasn't, completely unable to defend myself. But yeah, I watched stabbings in front of me on a regular basis. Again, so many drugs, it would blow your mind.
So you're saying most J6ers weren't in general population; they were just in a certain wing.
Yeah, once you got to D.C., there was a federal judge who ordered that everybody go into this one pod. It was C2B. I eventually got there, but in coming through Oklahoma, I'd had a couple of guys advise me to fire my attorney. They had been fighting the government for years, so I'd been praying about it, and I get put in this situation. The guards literally would set up fights amongst people. They'd put too little toilet paper there. You'd have to fight to get toilet paper. You'd have to fight to get toiletries. You have to fight to get water. They'd turn off water to your cells for punitive reasons, or if they just didn't like you. Meals, questionable. If you'd get them, sometimes you did, and they reeked of chemicals. They literally would get guys worked up by like withholding their medication, and then videotape them so they could it would give them excuse to beat the crap out of them, spray them, and throw them in the hole. So I actually stood up for this young black kid in that process, and the guards came at me. Had this kind of Mexican showdown of me and him, and I called out this officer for being racist. And I said, "You get off on killing young black kids. I know exactly what you are. You're racist," in some choice words. All the dudes in the cell start banging on their doors and going off, and they go, and the guards end up leaving. Door closes, I'm left out there alone, and these guys are going, "Hey, I want to shake your hand," because I've never seen a white guy stand up for a black guy like that before. And I'm going, well, it had nothing to do with your race. I'm not going to sit there and watch these guards try to lynch this 19-year-old kid. Is exactly what they're trying to do. They'd already murdered one guy in there. And I wasn't going to sit there and watch it happen again.
Did you think any of the prison guards were okay? Because, yeah, I mean, it's definitely one of those positions that sometimes people who love authority and they love to tell people what to do and they love, to manipulate situations, sometimes it's definitely the kind of people that go for that position. Was there anyone that you thought was fair?
There were a couple decent guards here and there. The thing is that they're so few and far between. One even came up and said, it was one that was known as being good. As what you had is a lot of the African guards in there who were racist against the African Americans. And the African American guard comes up and everybody knows him as being good. And he says, "I know that they abuse you up here, and I'm sorry, but if I do anything, they'll make my life hell."
Yeah, and they'll fire him. Yeah. Get rid of the good ones.
So that's what we were facing. So through that, I'd actually prayed. I broke down and had a moment in that cell alone where I just said, "God, get me out of here."
Were you a religious guy up to this point?
Not really.
Casual.
I mean, I was Christian, born again Christian.
Yeah.
I can't say that I was walking the walk by any stretch of the imagination. He used this to I firmly believe it. It's beyond belief. I know God used me in this situation. Actually, let me take that back. God had to make me usable. I had to be beat down to the point that I could be used, and I'm seeing it happen at this point. The fruits of all that. So he was beating me down, and I'd been thinking about representing myself, and this is one of a couple times that he spoke to me when I was in there, and I thought I was going to die, and I said, "God, just get me out of here." And he said, "You have all the talents and abilities to get yourself out." And 2 days after that is when I walked into federal court and fired my attorney, and so they set a FREDA hearing for like a week later. And when I went to that FREDA hearing is when I met my first other J6er, Brandon Fellows, who was also defending himself. And he says, "Hey, you're supposed to be over in this pod." And so they started trying to write the cop-outs to get me into the cell, and I had to do a sit-in to get to the cell. And that's when I started getting blessed with certain information coming in. And once I started to dive into some evidence, but still I had to fight for everything. They deprived us of all our civil liberties. I had no discovery. They refused to give it to us, even though you're supposed to get that. We had no law library. They deprived us of haircuts. They deprived us of religious services. They deprived us of visits. Everything they could do to isolate us. The whole goal was to get us to plead out. And that's what they wanted. And in the plea deal, you had to say it was Trump's fault. That's what the goal was. That's why they had to get me to D.C. Anyone who they had as quote unquote violent, because when I pushed that shield, this guy slipped because he was standing on the shield and he fell. And there, right to the right of me was Fox News, CNN, MSN. You've got the videos when you pull them up of this guy falling. So then I became this poster boy for the violence on Jan 6, which I couldn't understand. But what it was is I just happened to hit this shield at the wrong time or the right time, depending on who's looking. And because this guy fell, now they built an entire narrative off of that and went, okay, they could use, and they went into my background. They knew, okay, just like you say, hey, look, we can go ahead and I can understand why they would justify holding you because you had a criminal past. They used that to get me in there and to abuse me. I demanded my discovery at one point. They sprayed me, beat me, threw me in solitary confinement, and held me in solitary confinement for over 100 days
Okay,
straight.
let's hold that thought.
Yeah, we got a quick $10 Rumble Rant from K-Wall for Life says, thank you for sharing your story. So it sounds like the audience is interested in what you got to say. And
I do see
It's crazy.
I do see K-Wall's
it is
other
a crazy story.
I see K-Wall's other question. I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna wait to the end to
Sure.
bring that up to him. Go ahead. What were you gonna say, Jesse?
No, go ahead.
Well, so this is what was fascinating. We talked about this when we were on the phone.
Yeah.
150 days in solitary confinement. What led up to that? Like, I don't understand how they could do that to you. It's just outright torture.
Yeah. And that wasn't the only time. I mean, we had guys that had been beaten. One, actually, Ryan Samsel was beaten so bad, handcuffed and beaten in a cell. We called it the murder cell because you couldn't.
You've
it wasn't
seen
on
the
camera.
Shawshank Redemption, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So this
something
dude,
similar to that.
Yep. Exactly like that. Beaten so bad he had a detached retina, and they said it happened because he fell. So this was typical.
So you saw prison guards as openly corrupt as that movie kind of portrays them?
1,000%. They make money off of drugs and cigarettes and cell phones. They set up things amongst, they protect obviously their interests, and then they set up fights. The best thing for them in Gen Pop is they set up the fights so that they can then shut down the unit and not have to work. They keep you literally held in.
Yeah, I never thought of that angle. That is fascinating.
Yep.
Yeah, lock them all down. Huh.
Yeah, they don't have to do anything.
That show I wanted to watch.
Yep.
Or the game's on.
Yep.
All right. So, by the way, someone's got to do that job. That's a shitty job, by the way, to be a prison guard. They put you in solitary confinement. What was the great sin?
I demanded my discovery. I was standing outside my cell, so I was supposed to go down and change out my sheets. I heard the call. I was upstairs sleeping. Heard the call. I was like, oh, crap, I got to change my sheets out. I ran downstairs quick. I didn't have a mask on. So I get screamed at by this giant, fat, black, lesbian BLM member who was a lieutenant who hated us. So she starts screaming at me about a mask. And I finally had it. And I said, I've been demanding my discovery for the last, 6 months. And I guess it would have been about 4 there, but whatever. And you all refused to give it to us. You've been lying to the courts about it.
Hold on. The prison guards are refusing to give it to you, or is it the prosecution that's refusing to give it
They
to
were working together on it.
Okay.
Because the prosecution would go say that they had given it to us, and they knew what was going on. We weren't getting it, was bottom line. And so I said...
By the way, I'm just going to throw this out there. Like, that sounds like such an unbelievable story until you realize that Epstein was in a federal prison system, and all of a sudden the cameras go off, and the guard just happens to fall asleep when he supposedly hangs himself. No one believes he hung himself. That happened in a federal prison. That clearly was collusion.
Yeah. Right.
Like otherwise, you would say something like this. I'd be like, no, it's like, huh.
The thing is it gets even better. So they sprayed me because I stood outside my cell. She ordered everybody to go in their cells. I said, that's fine. I want to talk to Captain Cobb. This was one guy that I could work with that had actually helped me file a motion. So I tried to file a motion before to give to the courts. They wouldn't let me file it. So I had to have a sit-in before to file my motion. I'm representing myself pro se.
So do you think this is happening because you're representing yourself? Like if you had a lawyer, that would they probably wouldn't get away with this kind of stuff?
Nope. They were denying people access to their lawyers in there. On a regular basis, they would turn lawyers away. I've had lawyers for January 6th.
But the lawyers, when would have to know that this was happening.
Yes, they complained repeatedly to the courts about it.
Wow.
The courts shut it down. Lawyers have said, they've come in and said, this is like nothing we've ever seen. The way that they're handling Jan 6 is like nothing else you've ever seen. They literally deprived us of all our civil rights in there. They shut down our access to discovery across the board. The only reason I saw what I saw is because they screwed up at one point and gave us access to the database. So
okay, so let's go back to this. You push back at the large lesbian prison lieutenant.
Never laid any hands on anybody. I stood there and said,
push back as
I want to make
terms
sure
of like,
we'll make it real
I want
clear.
this. Yes, I got it. All right.
So
she probably didn't like that resistance, and this is what led to solitary confinement.
She went and got spray from another guard, came over and threatened to spray me, and I said, go ahead. I literally put my hands up stood in front of a camera and put my hands up, and she goes to spray me. I turned, hits me in the back of the head, and she follows me along the top layer, spraying all the way down, told another one to spray me, and I looked at her. I said, you really want to do this? And she's like, no, and put hers down, and she literally chased me. When I say chase, it was a brisk walk, and she was having trouble keeping up. Comes all the way around, ended up spraying herself in the process.
Oh, really?
And it was so much spray in this unit that 3 guys that were inside of their cells were overcome. 2 of them actually passed out because of it. I got thrown in the hole. I got beat up by the ERT team because that's what they do. The emergency response team come in, rough you up, and then threw me in myself. It was 5 days before I could get a shower to get it off of me. And
oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
See, I know what that's like. I was a military officer.
Okay.
And before deploying to the Balkans, we had to go through a station where you get sprayed in the face, about 18 inches. They spray once across and then back across. Yeah. And then you got to go like this with your eyes because they want it to work in. And the idea was like, okay, so if you're in a riot, because when we were in Kosovo, we had non-lethal and lethal. We didn't know what we were going to encounter.
Sure. Right?
So we had to know how to operate if we were sprayed from our own stuff because wind shifts and stuff like that, right?
Yep.
So you work in your eye, and then you got to do this obstacle course. You got to take down guys. You got to do all this kind of stuff. At the very end, then you go right into this cold, dark room, barracks or whatever it was, and then there's like a rinse thing. There's like all these rinse stations.
Yep.
You need the rinse station. You got to be careful that water doesn't go down here.
Right, yeah, exactly.
So I know exactly what you're talking about. And it takes a good half hour, 45 minutes for that stuff to finally wear out.
Yeah.
You're denied even rinsing this stuff off you for 5 days?
Yeah. I had to go into the sink, and they're like these little push sink things where you get like a trickle of water. Mm-hmm. And so you're literally like sitting there trying to get it in your hands and splash on your face. Mm-hmm. You couldn't get it all off. There was no way.
Oh, God. So they take you to solitary confinement then?
So
what's that
by international standards, anything longer than 15 days is considered torture. Solitary confinement, I've had this question asked of me so many times. The best I can say about solitary confinement or closest thing in the world to equate it to is go into your bathroom, turn off the lights, and sit there for about 2 hours. Try walking around. No electronics, no nothing. Just walk around in there. You can't use the shower. So you can use your sink, you can use your toilet. Try it for 2 hours. See what it's like. Your windows are frosted, and usually there's a little break on the sides of them, so you can get a little glimpse of maybe a tree outside or a telephone pole. That's the highlight. And just be there. And you don't know what time it is. Occasionally meals show up through a little slot, and they're supposed to take you out for a shower.
Do you get 3 squares a day, though?
Sort of. Allegedly. Not always.
What do you mean by that?
You're supposed to. You're supposed to, and there's some weeks where you get 3 meals every day. There's others you don't. There's some.
Meaning you get 2 instead of 3?
2, maybe none.
You went days without getting food?
I went at one point 4 or 5 days without getting food.
You can drink water, though, from a faucet, right?
Yes.
Is that the only way you're supposed to drink water?
Yes, the brown water out of the faucet.
You don't drink, when you get a meal, do you get some kind of drink with it?
No.
So the only
You get
water,
juice
because
packs.
you could obviously go, humans can go weeks without eating, but you can't go days without drinking water. So your only source of liquid is the faucet.
Yep. And they shut that off for punitive reasons whenever they feel like. So they could literally, I was up to 2.5 days with water being shut off in my cell at one point. This was not me making this up or just telling.
This is what gets me is like, that's just torture, right? By anyone's standard.
This is known when Marjorie Taylor Greene came into the prison. She wrote
this was very well reported, and the mainstream media ignored it.
Yep.
But this was very well reported. The treatment, because we all knew about the wing that the J6ers had and the treatment they were getting, and the solitary confinement.
It was here's where I'll give you the example of why they were doing this. So I keep demanding my discovery through all this. So I'm in solitary. I'm representing myself almost on a weekly basis.
Oh, by the way, I think it goes without saying, at this point, you're not guilty of anything.
Correct. Yeah. I'm still awaiting trial for my 2 alleged pushes. And they had a plea deal on the table of 30 to 36 months. So this was such a horrendous crime that they go, 2.5 years, plead out to this. Okay. At a federal level, a 2.5-year sentence is nothing. That's like jaywalking at a state level. Okay. So this is how dangerous I am, that in 30 months I can be done. So I'm going to almost weekly to the judge and saying, I don't have my discovery. And the prosecutor saying, yes, he does. And I'm saying, no, I don't. So he says, well, Ms. Prosecutor, get with the jail and figure out why not. So this goes on for months. And finally, they ordered the general counsel of the jail to show up and explain to the judge what's going on, why doesn't he have his discovery. 30 minutes before I show up for this Zoom meeting, they come up, hand me a computer, and sign off on your discovery being here. And it was just excuse after excuse. So this happens, and at that Zoom hearing, I said, Your Honor, here's the deal. I'm glad that I finally get my discovery. It pales in comparison to the evidence that I should be allowed to see, that I've been denied at this point. I said, but here's the deal. I've been in solitary confinement for over 100 days now. Anything more than 15 days by international standards is torture. So I've been tortured by my government. I've been beaten. I went through the whole litany of all the things that I've listed here, plus some. I've been denied access to legal materials. I've been denied. What I had to defend myself against the full weight and might of the federal government was a pen, a piece of paper, and a pocket constitution that I had traded food to get. Okay, so that was it. I said, so my options right now are to take an unfair trial or continue getting tortured. I don't know how much longer I can hold out mentally. So you have pushed my trial down the road against my objections every time. I have a right to a speedy trial. Do not push it anymore. Set the date. He sets the date about 90 days out. Within 36 business hours, they pulled me out of solitary and put me back in the pod. The entire goal of that, the entire torture that we endured right down the street from our nation's capital, was to get us to plead out and say Donald Trump made us do it, or take their rigged trial. And by the grace of God, I managed to make bond before that and get my trial pushed out further. It ended up taking years. But there's no earthly reason I should have made bond. But what I was able to do was to prove that the government had lied at my original bond hearing, and he did let me out. And like I said, between that time in the hole and getting bond, they opened up that database to us, and I saw evidence that will blow your mind, and was able to smuggle out some of it.
Okay, so let's get into the evidence. First of all, we do have a presumption of innocence in this country. You have not even gone to trial. You are given a right to a fair and speedy trial, which clearly I don't even know what that means these days anymore, right?
Yeah.
If you're a state senator, you can delay trials to whenever you want. Speedy trial is also good for the victims, right? Like Nicole Mitchell's stepmother. So it's fascinating to me. There's a presumption of innocence, and yet you could be in a hardened prison in general population, then put into solitary confinement for 150 days, unimaginable, and you haven't actually been guilty of anything yet. That just isn't mind-boggling. Okay. So let's get to trial. This is so. First of all, what are you being charged with at this point? Do you know all the charges?
2 alleged pushes, so two assault charges, a civil disorder, which were my 3 felonies, and then they just a bunch of misdemeanors. Dumb stuff.
Obstructing a government operation.
Yeah, right.
That's a big one. I used that one. All right.
So real quick, before I got there, I ended up turning down their plea deal.
I forgot. This is interesting.
I told them to pound sand on that because I wouldn't admit to a kick. So literally the kick was my foot was off the ground.
So one of the assault charges is they alleged you kicked a police officer.
Yeah. So my foot was off the ground, and they take this still frame of a video and say that I kicked this officer, which was a joke. I'd said, we proved in court it never happened. Mm-hmm. But they wouldn't let it go. And I said, look, I pushed this shield. I did that. And I will stand in front of the judge and explain, here's what happened and why. And if you literally want to make a federal case of it, so be it. I have no problem saying I did this. And I will tell you that I was threatened with being shot. I've told you the same thing through this whole thing. I found the video of the body cam next to it, and you can hear it. So, and actually, in the lead up to this, I was leading cops out of the area. And you see me patting officers on the back. The whole time, they're leaving the area. And the reason that I was even confronting this guy was me and another protester were letting officers know, like, this whole area is getting overrun, and they're kind of holding this last vestiges of a line. And meanwhile, everybody left behind them, like, you're going to get hurt. You need to get the hell out of here. And so we're pointing at this door and leading them out, and I pat these guys on the back, and there's a whole series of this until I come to this group of 4. One turns and leaves. I pat him on the back and come to the next one, and that's where you see my hands go up, and he threatens to shoot me. His hand comes down to his side, and I go, oh, crap. And it was a split-second reaction of just push the shield, and he happened to be standing on the shield and fell. And I was fine taking that to court.
So you end up, I mean, obviously we all know your fate. You showed on the Fox 9, you're guilty of, what were you found guilty of in court?
So they hit me with a superseding indictment after I turned down their plea deal, 30 to 36 months. And the plea deal, by the way, wasn't a deal. It was plead out to everything and say, sorry, Trump did it.
Yeah.
And then we'll give you a sentence of 30 to 36 months. So there wasn't a deal. It was just make our lives easier and give us a win. So I said, I'll give you the win, but I'm not going to plead guilty to something I didn't do. So drop the kick and we're good. And they wouldn't do it.
So you would have pled to 1 assault charge?
1 assault. Yep. I said fine if it's an assault.
And what about the disorderly conduct?
Oh, sure.
That was a felony, wasn't it?
Yeah, civil disobedience, fine. I think it's kind of a cool...
But not when it's a felony, civil disobedience.
The assault was bigger, so it didn't really matter.
Okay.
It wasn't going to add anything, plus it sounds
okay,
cool.
I see what you're saying. So you've already pled to something larger than that.
Yeah.
Sorry, just really quick. I found the felonies: obstruction of an official proceeding, obstructing police officers.
Hold on. That was a felony charge?
So this is when I turned
Can you
down
put it on the screen, Dustin?
Yeah, it's all a bunch of text, so it looks kind of dumb, but
yeah, I'll give you so I was told through the flagpole. This is the funny one.
Well, it says you were convicted of 6 felonies here.
Yep. Nope, that wasn't isn't
this the DOJ?
Yep.
This is incorrect. But what they had was there was a superseding indictment. So when I said no to their 30 to 36 months, they tacked on 2 new assaults that they manufactured and the 1512 obstruction charge. And what they said, I was getting hit with a flagpole from behind.
Yeah.
At one point, and I reach up.
But hold on, Brian.
Yep.
Are you saying it's incorrect you were found guilty of those 6 felonies?
No, I was found guilty of 5 felonies.
He's convicted of 6.
Nope, that's actually incorrect. It was 5.
Straight from the DOJ website. I don't know.
They're wrong on that one. It's 5. It's
okay, but you just made it sound like it was only 3 things they were charging with you, and then you would have taken 1. So then they add more to it?
Yes, they go and get a new indictment.
Including obstruction of an official proceeding, obstructing police officers during a civil disorder, and 4 counts of assaulting, resisting, or impeding officers following a bench trial before Chief Justice Bosberger on July 20. Okay.
Yep. So the big one on this is that assault with a deadly weapon. So this was important because what that did is it enhanced all the misdemeanors to felonies. So I rolled into court with 12 felonies facing 20 years when they would have taken a 30 to 36 month plea deal. Mm-hmm. Okay, so what the deadly and dangerous weapon was, now think about this. if I had been charged and we've been doing this for 3 years and they were willing to take a 30 to 36 month plea deal, they suddenly tack on enough things to make it 20 years. This was telling everybody else, you take this deal or we're going to crush you. And I would not bend the knee. So their charge of this deadly and dangerous was I'm getting hit in the back of the head with a flagpole, and I reach up and grab it. And I'm not even looking at it, just reach up and grab this thing, and it breaks off in my hand. It's this little PVC about 12, maybe 16 inches long. And I immediately throw it into an area where there's nobody, okay? The judge literally laughed it out of court, to his credit. It didn't even make it all the way through trial. When he first heard it, because he's seen what's been going on, and he was like, well, wait a minute. I've seen all this evidence up to this point because I've brought these motions. He goes, what's the deadly and dangerous? And they say this flagpole. And the look on his face, he just goes,
so
okay.
one charge got dismissed, you're saying?
That was the one. So there wasn't 6. I was found guilty on 5.
Let's pull up the video, Dawson, here. This is the publicly available video, and then we asked you for some video.
Yep.
This is what it's showing. Who's Cassidy McDonald? Is that just some media influencer? Okay. Go back up real quick, Dawson. It's the saying.
Yeah, you can see me pointing right here.
This is with our media coalition. CBS News has obtained new videos from the case against Capitol writer Brian Mock. Okay, so let's go make this full screen, Dawson, and let's just play it in real time, and then we can slow it down. So you are the guy in this black
with the Nike swoosh
backpack. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so that shows you pushing down a cop.
Yep. Yeah, nothing else. The rest of this is of significance. If you take that back and do it in slow motion, you see stuff a lot different. Again, look how far away the crowd is from this. Nobody's attacking the police right here.
Well, it looks like you were attacking the police right there. So let's go back to...
Trying to point them out really quick. There's you grabbing a shield.
Oh, yeah,
here.
by the way, I was charged with theft of the shield that I passed away, so nobody used it as a weapon.
Yeah.
Which they recovered those shields. But
Yeah.
I got
look at the guy just standing there with an eagle head.
Oh, he's the best. He's my favorite one in all this because there's stuff going on all around him.
Yeah, there's chaos and there's
he just stands there with it. Yeah.
That's pretty baller. All right, let's go back to okay. So there you are.
And the tough thing with this is if I had the aerial to show you the rest of it, you would see me actually leading officers out.
Here you are, right there. Right black backpack.
Real quick, pause that for a second.
Okay, pause it.
Because what I was just doing was pointing towards that back door. I had just got through patting an officer on the back who had left right next to him, who I just had a conversation with. So the idea that I'm attacking officers, what I was able to show was about a half dozen of these who had reacted to what I was showing and pointing at that door and leading them out of that area because that's where they were retreating.
All right, so here you are. Oh, by the way, this guy to the left with the shield, is this a shield that's been taken from cop, or is that a police officer?
I believe that's a police officer back here.
Okay.
Now this guy.
Oh, is this? This is body cam footage.
Yeah, body cam.
I see it. Right.
So as you slow down here, look at where he's standing right here.
Yep.
See him standing on the shield. This is why he falls.
Hold on. See who's standing on a shield.
This officer right here. That's about right here.
This guy. Okay.
Yep.
It looks like he's backing up to his shield.
Up right against. This is why he ends up falling. I'd like to think I'm badass enough to push someone to the ground, but it wasn't going to happen.
Okay, he does stand on the shield, correct? Okay, well, but you are pushing his shield.
I pushed the shield, absolutely.
Okay. So what's the context behind that?
What you don't hear.
I agree with you that him standing on that shield's definitely.
Oh, it's definitely why he fell. The guy behind him, you see the guy with the riot gear on the other cop, directly beyond me. In that picture?
You're saying right behind you?
Go over to your left a little bit. Go for my hand straight. That guy.
Okay.
I found his body cam. Okay. What you hear on that just before, and it's hard to see from this angle, but the one that I have from the other side, you see his right hand come off his shield.
Is this okay? Do you have that video?
Not with me. No.
All right. So tell me the story. So he's going for a gun.
What you hear on this is you hear me yelling for them to get out. And then I step back and my hands go up and his hands come off his right hand is not on that shield right now. You can see it. His hand had come off to his side and you can't hear the first part of it, but you hear or I'll shoot on the video. And it was
So why are you pushing the shield? Okay, I'm now confused what you're saying. The guy that you're pushing said he was going to grab the firearm, or
That's what I heard. I heard, and I'll shoot.
Okay, I thought you were saying the guy. Oh, you're saying it was the body camage of the other guy that captures
Yeah,
that audio.
I hear it on video. So I'd been saying
this. Go back real quick here,
years.
Dawson. I want to see where his hand's at.
That might be too far. Sorry.
Right about as soon as this guy passes, you'll see it. The very little bit of his right hand start to come down. It starts. You can see it moved off.
Yeah, it does look like the arm's starting to go down there.
Now I've got it on another side angle that you can see it way better where he comes down.
So your explanation there is self-defense. You think you're about to be shot at?
Yeah, and I was fine going to the judge and saying, look, this is what happened. If you're taking this as this deadly assault, fine, charge me. You know, I'm not going to say that I didn't do it. I've been saying it all along that I did, but here's why. And so everything else that they went through and tried to manufacture off of that became this image that they used on documentaries and stuff.
I got it. I think I've probably seen that in some montages.
Yep.
This right here is how many charges that you were eventually, like what you did right there. How many of those 6 charges? Sorry, 5 felonies that you're convicted of. How many are there?
Everything really stemmed from that. I mean, that on itself was one.
But you would have to assume you've assaulted other people to have those other assault charges.
One of the assault charges that they brought against me was the throwing the
but you say brought
thing.
Against you. You just admitted you were convicted of at least 5, not 6. You say DOJ is wrong on that website.
Yep, the 1512 obstruction charge that got thrown out by the Supreme Court.
Okay.
The civil disorder charge, which all they have to do is say that there was a riot.
So then 3 assault charges.
So then the 3 assault charges.
So we just watched as one of those assault charges. Okay. We got another video, Dawson?
Yeah, this one is right after. This one.
And this is the same person. Go ahead and zoom. Okay.
This one's less impactful, I guess.
Yeah.
What's happening here? Is this just another angle of the same thing, or is this a different?
I was actually trying to pick that cup
Okay, let's start from the beginning so we know where he's at here.
The beginning doesn't really help in this one. In this one, it's more so. This is, sorry.
Right now, I have no idea where he's at.
Yeah,
this
right
guy
here,
right there.
That's me.
So he's back in the crowd a little bit throughout the beginning of this. That's why.
So what happened here? Just to give you a quick context. The Lower West Terrace had just kind of fallen. This was the point where they were starting to fall back.
Before or after that last video?
This is before. Okay. This is right when this happened. I came over to pick up. There's a group of people on the ground.
Stop. Is this the speed that it's at?
Yeah. I tried stabilizing it, and it's too much.
Okay, well, let's not play the video. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Okay.
Basically, you see where I'm standing right there. Okay. They said actually, if you take this frame by frame, you'll see it.
What am I
wearing
doing?
Can you run that frame by frame? Yeah, that was my Blue Lives Matter gator mask.
Well, why would you wear that?
Because they were shooting tear gas at us.
Oh, okay.
So right here is where my foot comes off.
You think the mask would stop the tear gas from getting into you?
No, but it was worth it. This was so see my foot off the ground? That's their kick. When I was off balance.
Okay, yeah, go back here.
Sorry.
Yep. That was my kick. That wasn't a kick.
Is this a police officer on the ground?
Yes. I just tried to pick him up and actually missed picking him up. And an officer hit this other guy in the head, so we started backing up. You see how I'm backing away from him. Mm-hmm. And then I'm off balance and step away.
It looks like you lifted your leg, but I don't see a kick.
Well, you see that flagpole on the ground there? That's what I was standing on. So that's why I was off balance and put my hand on the other guy next to me.
Why is this guy blocking you off?
I don't know. I mean, it was
blocking
kind of chaos at that point.
What do you mean?
Like, it looks like he's getting in between you, or maybe I'm misreading.
Oh, he was grabbing that other guy. I think he was pushing that other guy off.
Stop, get away, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean,
it's just interesting to be in a situation like this. Now I'm going to ask Kirk's question. Do you regret being there? Would you made different choices?
No, I don't regret being there because I had the information that I had. I mean, you go in hindsight and go, okay,
But like in hindsight, like as soon as you saw things getting a little out of hand, that's my general thinking is like, listen, I like metal music back in high school, college. The mosh pits were fun, right?
Yeah.
But there's no freaking way I would do that in a protest because this exact thing could happen.
Yeah.
And they take a still frame of your leg in the air and assume you're kicking somebody.
Right. Here's the thing with it, though. A couple of things that I've never really been able to talk about is when you show up to a protest, you're already pissed off, right? Like you feel like there's been an injustice. Why else would you show up to a protest?
Right. That's fair.
Right. So you're at something that you feel there's an injustice, and what you're trying to do is get your voice heard.
Yep.
So in that, we've been peaceful. Every Trump rally's been peaceful. We're not out there causing violence. We're not burning down the city. I think that's some other group. Name's escaping me at the moment, but there is another group that loves
Tim
to burn
Kaine's
down
son
cities.
that was involved with it. I can't remember.
Yeah. So
actually, no one
there.
knows who Tim Kaine is anymore. Isn't that funny? SNL had to do a no one remembers who Hillary Clinton's VP running mate was.
Yeah, that guy. That
dude.
yeah. That's the Walls legacy, right? Like, who is that?
Well, unfortunately, he might be running for U.S. Senate. If he gets in, I guess we'll have to know who he is again.
Well, we got
whoever's running against Tim Walz has got national list that he could raise a ton of money, or she could raise a ton of money off of, because you're running against Mr. Hi.
Is Royce listening? Is he out there right now? Royce, we need you.
Royce listens to every show we do.
Fantastic. I did text him the other day, so text me back, Royce. I got some people in D.C. that we need to talk with.
Royce would probably enjoy interviewing you on this show.
Oh, yeah. I'm a big fan of Royce's. I've been a little busy the last 4 years. Otherwise, I would have been on his campaign. So hit me up, Royce. So here's the deal. They're already at this point where you're pissed off at the government. You think the government is stealing this election,
right,
or rigging it. When you come to the place where we're supposed to go, what better place than Congress to air your grievances and have your voice heard?
Plus, I think what they were asking that day is to kick it back to the states.
Right.
It was the remedy, right?
That was the remedy.
Like, this whole idea is an insurrection and that Trump was trying to steal elections. Like it's such a dumb talk point. I don't even know why they get any credibility. Like, no. You remember what Trump did on January 20th? He stepped aside.
Yeah. And was there any violence?
There was no violence.
Because
he stepped
we're
aside.
Not there to cause
he
violence.
Walked away from it. His remedy literally was kick it back to the states. That's a legal recourse.
Right. That's what we're there to support. And by the way, Antifa showed up to every single Trump rally that he ever had except for one. January 6th. Weird. They just all stayed home at the biggest rally.
Are you serious?
There was no Antifa that was there protesting.
Well, that would be
no
really
BLM protesting. But we sure as hell saw them in the crowd. We can pick them out. We know who they were. But that aside, when I was there, when you're standing there and you feel that your voice has been silenced, that they are stealing this from you, that you're there, this is the last ditch effort to protect your country, because we saw what happened the 4 years after it. We saw what happened when they rigged and stole that election. We saw them try to destroy our country and come damn near close to doing it. Luckily, we're taking it back.
It's amazing, like, when you think about how much they destroyed in that amount of time. It's just unbelievable. And literally, you have to have drastic change like Trump is doing right now, because just by the damage that's been done.
Yep. So as you're standing there and the police are attacking you, no, you stand your ground right there and go, wait a minute, this ain't America. We're not here. And that's the thing, is we sat there and told them, we're not here to fight you. We're here, we supported you. We're here to have our voice heard. And then you start watching old men and women getting their asses beat in front of you. You as a man stand in between that and go, no, no, no. And that's where I found myself in that position. And what you see through most of these videos as you go and you study these is you'll find that men were jumping into these situations trying to keep the police off and help them. I just got through doing an interview with the Middletons, who were a couple. He was a pastor. They're praying together head to head, and an officer comes in and starts hitting him in the head while they're praying. And she tries to fight him off. She's like, no, stop hitting my husband. She's 5'2", 50-some years old, disabled. Mm-hmm. She's trying to fight him off. The officer grabs her scarf that was around her neck and starts choking her out with the scarf. He tries to get her off. They were both found guilty of assaults and put in prison. She had a 250-pound officer, 6'2", sit on the stand and cry, saying that little 5'2" Jaleese Middleton tried to pull him over the barricade. It's absurd. So all of these charges that they brought that are assaults and violent offenders, you start breaking them all down and actually looking at them individually, you're going to go, holy crap, at best, these were ticky-tack touch fouls. That push, I was one of the worst of January 6th. If they showed that and said, this is one of the 81 worst, and you break it down and listen to me talk, this doesn't make any sense. The narrative is bullshit.
It does seem like, in many regards, it's like football. They might not call pass interference, but when your arms are extended, it looks worse, right?
Right.
And so your arms got extended, and then clearly you did see him slipping on that shield, so that makes it look far worse.
Right.
I guess
so
a lot of us
it.
guys just think that, getting in a little scuff, without punches thrown, certainly without deadly weapons, is way different than,
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so you said you got some videos you wanted to show. Dawson's got
if he pulls
up,
this
so let's
up.
guide him through here.
Yeah.
Because it does look bad, the one video with your arms fully extended, needless to say.
So these are not of him. These are of the whole J6 in and of itself.
So this is
I don't know
right.
how
Okay,
far
so
deep we
then
wanna
my
go.
question to you is, there's got to have been 2 other assaults that you conducted. I mean, you were found guilty of 2 other assaults then.
The
Well,
one was that kick that
Right.
wasn't a kick.
Oh, I thought that one got kicked out early.
No, I got found guilty of that. They
So
literally
they brought that back then. Huh?
Oh yeah, they never let it go. They found me guilty of that when literally the officer.
Is there another video that shows?
No,
literally that's all it is?
Yeah, there's one that shows that I was actually, because of the way that is with kind of the fish lens with the body cams, it looks like I'm way closer than I actually am. There's one that catches me from the side that you can see. I would have had to have been about 12 feet tall to actually kick him had I tried to do that.
Okay, what's the other assault charge?
I was actually getting pushed across the lower West Terrace. Everything kind of moved in that direction from that one that was the kick, not kick, to the push on the shield. We all got kind of pushed across the terrace. And in that, I was pushed up against something on the ground. I was about to fall down, and I pushed back against the crowd and still fell. One of the people I was pushing against, as the whole crowd is pushing at each other, was an officer who never fell or anything, but it was one they tacked on after the fact just because my hands contacted him.
Okay.
That was an assault.
All right, let's...
It was absurd. And the judge even was like, he even said about the alleged kick that he found me guilty of, and this other assault. He's like, basically, those don't matter. What he's sentencing me to is the push on the shield. So
Laser Jim says, great episode. Thank you, Laser Jim. Appreciate it very much. Let's get to your videos. What do you want to show us here?
yeah, I just want to show the context of when you think of this violent crowd and that they keep showing that, oh, there's this violence. This is right when we came up to the Lower West Terrace. These are the officers right here. They make it sound like they're just overrunning these officers. Do any of these officers look like they're in distress?
What time were you there?
This was between, what time is on this video? You got a timestamp at 12?
1 o'clock.
At 1 o'clock. So I was there roughly right in between that and 2. I don't know exactly what time I showed up there, but I want to say like 1:30ish to the actual Lower West Terrace. But again, there's the 120 minutes. My actual charge came at 2:19. So this is the crowd. I mean, none of these officers are in distress. They would make it seem like they overran this whole thing. And this is where this violence ended up. Now you see these guys up top that are starting to come in. This is where they actually started to open fire on the crowd. This is not a violent mob. This is nobody trying to advance on police. The police are not in distress.
Well, at this stage, it's not, obviously.
That's the point, though, is they make it, they don't show you this. So they're making it sound like they came up there and overran this. But why wouldn't they show this?
Well, because it doesn't matter.
Right.
You could have, like that statement, mostly peaceful, that was used for BLM riots. Well, it is true. Most of it was peaceful. But the point is there was parts that weren't peaceful. And those are the things that we need to pay attention to.
So this is, most of them are just kind of gathering. a couple frames down, you'll start seeing where they shoot into the crowd. The crowd's still standing here peacefully. If you jump up on this one, I believe, how long is this video? Keep going through.
Well, it looks like it covers, I mean, if I'm not looking at this
it's
right.
the whole day.
Yeah.
Look at the size of this crowd, too.
Mm-hmm.
This stretches all the way down to the Capitol. Again, this is 8 to 20,000 people they're trying to claim are there. This is the other side. Again, there's no one being violent in this. And at this whole time, the whole narrative on this is that we're savagely beating the police. The police are in duress through this whole thing.
Yeah, that turned out to be just a bald-faced lie. And by the way, that lie gets spread to this day by Democrats that people died. No cop died.
No cop died.
From January 6th.
4 protesters died that day.
Well, 4. Ashley Babbitt certainly died, but who else died? I thought it was,
there's 2 died of heart attacks on that Lower West Terrace.
But during the event?
During the event, when they started throwing flashbangs out there, 2 guys died of that. And then Roseanne Boylan was beat to death in the tunnel, the same tunnel that Vicky White was in. She was beat to death by Capitol Police Officer Lila Morris.
Okay, just what are we looking at here? Who put this together?
This is called What Parler Saw During January 6th.
Oh, okay, I see. So people were posting. Okay,
these are all open
Parler.
source.
That sounds so old. Might as well say MySpace.
Right, exactly.
So Parler had someone put together a montage
Are
of
most
people
of these being posted by the people who were there?
Yep, all open source.
So
people that were
clearly
there.
These are people's camera.
would they be cherry picked at all?
Well, clearly they're cherry picked, right?
Okay.
Are they even going to show anything?
Oh no, this goes the full gamut on everything through here. I mean, this is worth spending some time looking through because you'll get
organized right in
chronological
order. Right.
Yep.
Okay.
So, is there anything in particular on here that maybe refutes some of the narrative?
Well, the whole everybody being gathered there. If you jump back to about 1:30, come back there to right about. Come up a little further.
I think the other way.
Are you talking later in the day or earlier?
Yeah, a little later in the day. Here, you might be. Yep, keep popping through here. You're gonna see. As we get on the Lower West Terrace, they will start throwing flashbangs into this crowd. That there is no reason to do.
There's them chucking some.
Yeah, and this is out on the east side.
So is this the breach point then? Or
no, this is just out on the east side, and they just start these random spots like these barricades come out of nowhere. They're not even really being used to block anything. These officers would pick them up and use them as weapons, and then when people took them away, it was like, oh, you're pulling away this police line.
There's Alex Jones. Go back to that
Alex
one.
Jones. Oh, actually, this kid. If you're able to do sound, pull up the sound on this kid.
Have you seen Alex Jones lately? Holy shit, he's like way quicker. Muscle mass.
You can't hear him in that one,
No.
unfortunately.
This kid right here with it's blown up, he was up there praying with a cop and got hit with a flashbang in the side of the face. That's what he's talking about on here.
Yeah.
What you see in that crowd where everybody's just standing there in front of these officers, that's when they start pulling out these flashbangs and throwing them in there and getting the crowd all worked up. And this is where most of these were Proud Boys and people had worked up through that area. But they're up top shooting down into the crowd too. This is the other part you don't see that we've pulled videos. Like this guy's sitting up here just shooting randomly into the crowd. Just up there, just picking off people left and right.
Ganser says Alex Jones has Ozempic face. What's that mean? Is that a new term?
No, I think it just means getting thin quickly.
Is that what you mean? Or is there like a...
It's the Ozempic. Once you get on that, people are losing weight super fast.
Yeah,
so
well, when you lose weight, your face thins out, but how do you know it's Ozempic? Is that
Ganser just doesn't understand that.
Yeah, Ganser is such a hater. Although Ganser lost some weight, and he did it the old-fashioned way.
Hey, nice.
So basically...
it's called the Alfam diet. Eat less food, work out more.
Well, I did drop 50 in prison, so...
Yeah, I noticed from the image we had, he looks more cut.
Yeah.
Just
nothing else
to survive, huh?
Yeah, I mean, it was a treat.
Let me ask you this question. Do you feel like you were guilty of some things that day?
No, and here's why. This thing was a setup, 100%. We've looked at the videos. I was in there with a guy who was Special Forces. Okay, had been in the military for like 20 some odd years. He was in Iraq and Afghanistan doing stuff with the CIA, some real deep stuff. When he looked at this, he goes, "This is exactly what we did in other countries." So as he would watch videos, and we're all like, "Okay, Jeff, you're a little twack." We knew he had PTSD from what he had done over there. But he would sit there and watch these videos, and he'd start picking out a guy, and he'd go, "That's one." And he goes, "It'll be a team of 3. We're like, "Sure thing." And then he'd start to find others in these videos. And as he finds them in these groups of 3, we'd watch and see where they went. Well, sure enough, the first day he picks out this group of 3, and we're like, okay. 2 days later, he on a Saturday morning, I'll never forget it, he goes, "Hey, guys, come here." Because we'd get, occasionally we'd get Discovery on a little laptop. And of course, we'd all compare notes when we'd get them. So he's, "Come here, look at this." And these 3 guys who he identified are behind the lines with an officer, and there's one of them's a taller black guy, and these 2 white guys, one dressed like a cowboy, and they didn't really match, but they were clearly together. And he's got his arm draped around this officer, it's a woman, and he's whispering in her ear. And all the other officers are walking around like no big deal. And we're sitting there looking at it like, wait a minute. They were beating the crap out of anybody that came behind the lines. How the hell are these 3 guys over here, having a conversation in this little nook with these officers, and then they're done, and they come walking back to the line, and then they pull apart these barricades and let them walk in, and the one guy, the last guy through at the end, kind of turns and he goes, "No," like he's getting attacked by him, and they just meld into the crowd. And that's when we first were like, holy shit, Jeff's right. There's undercovers in here. So that was before I found the ops manual that said they were there. And then we'd all seen a bunch of Ukrainians there. Everybody that's there has talked about there being a huge presence of Ukrainians that we've never got the bottom of. I have another guy who was tracked 3 guys back to Israel and is convinced that they're Mossad. We've had enough things.
Wait, so what's the conspiracy? Our own government, Ukraine, Israel. It's like, geez, we're throwing them all. Were aliens there too at the same time? My God, throwing them all out there.
Here's what I do know. Here's what I do know. Of those that we found, Ukraine and Israel, what are our 2 new wars since then? So
yeah, but I mean,
gee,
well, what does Jan 6 have to do with Russia invading Ukraine? Like, that goes back. I mean, that goes back hundreds of years, really, when you think about it.
You don't think they're all connected?
No, not at all. Well, what's the connection?
Well, they wouldn't have been able to do these wars with Trump in office.
I mean, he likes to say that, and by the way, it's a good one because they can never prove him wrong. But most likely, I would tend to agree with that. But
So-
I mean, like, what's the? I don't understand why.
Well, here's what they were trying to get rid of. They were trying to destroy
Trump had already
MAGA
lost the
Trump.
election at this point.
Well, they're
But you're
trying
saying that it was a.
Well, here's the thing. No. Here's what was going to come out. Gosar at 1 o'clock. By the way, the whole pipe bomb.
Oh, so you think that they were going to be successful in Congress at this point, and this changed the narrative? You know, that's
100%.
interesting because it actually changed the narrative. We had a political operation. I was president of Action for Liberty at the time in the state of Minnesota on ending Walls of Mercy powers. And we had to play Eric Mortensen on the first day of the legislative session, January 5th. I think it was 5th or whatever, before January 6th. He made these motions on the House floor, and the Democrats were shocked that this guy who had never been in there before is making these motions and was going to force a vote on this resolution. So they adjourned quickly, and the next day they were going to meet. In between that is January 6th. And all of a sudden, it's like all the wind came out of our sail. We had the wind in our sail.
Yep.
I mean, I'm not saying that it would change the vote. Those Democrats were con artists, but it's like it just changed the narrative. So you're saying in the U.S. Congress it changed the narrative? And then
Oh, well, here's the thing. At 1 o'clock, Paul Gosar brings that motion, which is signed by Ted Cruz, okay, that is going to they're going to adjourn to go into their committees and separate chambers, have their discussion on this. Coincidentally, the 2 pipe bombs that existed at the DNC and RNC that isn't actually a DNC and RNC, but okay, we happen to find these things. that had timers set for 1 o'clock, but they aren't real explosives. So now we have to pull resources away from the Capitol over here to this. Now, what happened a couple days before this is Pelosi goes to the Pentagon and changed the way that the Capitol Police could request support from the Pentagon. Chief Sund is in charge of the Capitol Police. If there was an issue like a bomb, bomb gets placed at the Capitol, or there's a threat of something, he can call over to the Pentagon and go, hey, send us some support. Now, you would think all of Congress is assembled there. It would make sense that he could do this. 3 days beforehand, right, when Trump offered the 10,000 troops and that gets shut down, Pelosi goes over to the Pentagon and has a conversation with Milley. Okay, you can't make this shit up. She goes over and has this conversation. They change the protocol on how Chief Sund can now get support. He now has to go through the House Sergeant-at-Arms and the Senate Sergeant-at-Arms. Two different ones have to both approve to get the Pentagon to send support. He made a call before there was ever a breach asking for support directly to the Pentagon. Now, they never say who gave the answer, but the answer that he got back was, we don't like the optics of this. And he got shut down. So then, before anybody else, before anyone was called out of session, Nancy Pelosi gets escorted out of the building down to the bowels of the Capitol. Why was Pelosi moved before anybody else, before a riot was ever declared, before anything happened, before pipe bombs were found? She's pulled out of the Capitol and put down in the bowels. Weird. Almost like she knew it was coming. So,
and she was, sitting with Schumer down there, right?
Yep. So at one point she's sitting with Schumer. So he goes to the Senate and House Sergeant-at-Arms.
Wait, she's pulled out, though, when the breach occurs, right?
Oh, before
any assessments made that.
Yes.
Because obviously, a rational head would be like, if there's really an insurrection happening, then she'd be like target number one.
Before there's anything, she's pulled out. Congress is still in session. The vice president would be number one that gets pulled out. Secret Service pulls them before anyone.
He is presiding over that, isn't he?
Right? Secret Service would be the first to act. She gets pulled out of there first. Okay, weird. So then the request goes from Sund through the House and Senate Sergeants-at-Arms. That request from them, those answer directly to whom? Pelosi and Schumer. The request goes into those two. Those two turn it down and sit down in the Capitol the entire time together with Pence. McConnell makes an appearance and others, meanwhile Sund is requesting backup to this whole thing, and they deny it.
And her daughter's recording a lot of this too.
Which is interesting, isn't it? Yeah.
All the way up till 5:30.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think her daughter was recording it? I know she's a documentary. She does all kinds of stuff like that, but why do you think it is?
I don't know on that one. That one's weird.
Yeah.
But they love to brag about their stuff afterwards. Just look at the Times or the article afterwards where, it wasn't the Times article. It was Newsweek, when they Newsweek Times. They literally bragged about stealing the election afterwards. They're like, oh, it'd be crazy if we told you there was a cabal of all these, social media titans and politicians and this doing it. We didn't do it to steal the election. We did it to fortify democracy. It's not enough that they do it. They got to brag about it. So at some point they were going to do that. Now, here's what's more interesting is to preface this. 6 months prior to January 6th, Pelosi and I forget who else were making efforts. Okay, this is insane, I know. They were making efforts 6 months prior to decrease security on January 6th.
How do we know this?
That's out there. Go start Googling. I don't know who has that.
Can I look it up?
You will find that. Start doing some hunting on that one.
What would I look up?
I'll get back to you on that. Let me talk to some people.
Send it to us.
I'll find you stuff for that. But
credible source.
Okay, and the Washington Post did an article in 21. I want to say it was October of 21, like 14, 18 pages. It was fantastic. This timeline. What they were doing is they started to show the lead up to January 6th and the credible threats that were there and what they were doing to mobilize with this. So what happened is you see this start to take place. The fusion centers that came in after 9/11, they were supposed to pick up chatter. The ones that monitor everything that we do, they go ahead and they start pulling this information together about potential violence. At this point, they're saying it's just a Trump rally is normal. And then as the weeks progress, they start having these meetings between the Capitol Police, FBI, NSA, Metro PD, and a few others. This includes briefings to Pelosi and Schumer. What they decide is to put the Capitol Police, now they're actually pulling international information. So they're putting all this into this database of potential violence. And the person they choose to put in charge of this is none other than Chief Sund of the Capitol Police. Why in the hell would the Capitol Police Chief have anything to do with all of this intelligence coming in? We have the NSA, FBI, and any other organization you want. The setup was there to put him in this and be the fall guy. So what happened on that Lower West Terrace where you saw those officers standing and where I ended up, we were all set up. The Capitol Police after this, you hear them on tape time and again going, holy shit, we were set up in this. We were set up, cursing it, going, they knew what they were doing. They set us up. And so, yeah, we all got put in there. We were suckers, and they set up Sund to take the fall. And that's exactly what happened. He resigned the next day.
Yeah, so this is maybe my conclusion, and we're coming up on 2 hours. So
yeah.
To end it here. Maybe we'll have you back here because it seems like there's still more to be said.
Yeah.
But that's kind of when Trump did the blank pardon, which, by the way, you're part of that, right?
Yep.
Do you think Trump knows everything you just said? Like,
I hope so.
Okay. So the way I look at this thing is there's a higher level game, because I'm like, why would you blank pardon to even allow the people that committed assaults like you, right? There's some, I think there was commutes, like there was maybe.
Yeah, it was Proud Boys and Oath Keepers.
Yeah, so not everyone got full pardons.
Yeah.
But why would you do a blank pardon? And then it kind of hit me. It's like, if there's a higher level game that's being played, okay? Dawson doesn't buy into this, but I think it's pretty obvious that there's a higher game that's being played, and it's Trump, but in many regards, it's the MAGA movement in general that gives Trump any bit of power, right?
Sure.
It's not just that Trump's a billionaire, right? If that's all it takes, then why isn't Michael Bloomberg the president of the United States? Bloomberg, what does he have, like 20 times the wealth of Trump? He spent like $1 billion in commercials, and he didn't even barely register in the DNC primary.
Yeah.
There's something that Trump did that tapped deep into the hearts and minds of the American people in 2015 and 2016 that raised above a movement. And I look at it like kind of a more powerful Tea Party movement, because these are people that love our country. And if you're the deep state, and the deep state does exist, you have to be insane to think it doesn't.
Right.
And then if you don't think it exists, then what the hell was Epstein's job? Because he was clearly getting blackmail on all the powerful people. So it's like there's this higher level game going on, and right now the good guys are winning. I love it. I love what's going on. The good guys are winning, but they saw it coming, and they're striking against it. And you guys are just the pawns in this game.
Yep.
And that's the sympathy I have for people like you. And in many regards, I think it's sympathy that can be extended to BLM protesters, too.
Sure.
Because the higher level game that's being played, we've said this on the show many times, they want us divided.
Oh, yeah.
There are people that are trying to control what's going on. They want the racial divide.
Yep.
To the point where they'll probably fund the networks of Black Lives Matter to keep this racial divide. It's good for them.
Yep.
Keep the people fighting amongst themselves. I want love. I want respect. I want peace with our fellow brethren. I want to stop the powerful people, the guys that are playing these games. And so it's like, at some point, there's a higher level game. And so, yeah, the cops were wrong at points on January 6th, and the protesters were wrong on January 6th. But in some regards, it's almost like the way I look at war. The heads of state are creating a war scenario, and you almost have to understand that there's got to be forgiveness to the people on the battlefield, even if they shot at you, even if they killed your brother in arms. And this happens, by the way, in war. This happens all the time, where people, like an American soldier meets someone from the Viet Cong, right? Because in the end of the day, you are pawns basically in a higher level game.
Yep.
And there was a higher level game being played that day. I don't know if I don't know exactly. You seem to have it pieced together more, and why wouldn't you? You've lived it. But even if I can't perfectly articulate and see all the plays, I could see the game was being played, right?
Oh yeah, 100%. And that's just it. Is, you know, when I initially looked at it, it felt like the Capitol Police had attacked us, and I blamed them initially.
And maybe they were doing it for self-preservation too, because they're put in that spot.
But looking back at it, I know exactly what it was and who had put this all into place. And I've seen the evidence. Like I said, at that point that they opened up the database that they screwed up and let us have access to it, I got what I could out. And that's where it's funny, because a lot of this stuff, I was never able to take credit for it before, because I would have gotten new charges and thrown back in there. Right. So I had to sit back and just let this go. And there's a zillion stories that have come out about Jan 6 and all these little things and stuff about Pelosi and the true timeline. That it's like, this was all stuff that I pulled out that was on my flash drive that I got out of there. So if I had actually been able to come out and like be a whistleblower, this is like Snowden level stuff.
Right.
And
that's what's awesome about this. Even though January 6th was a bad day, we get to turn it into the exposure of the government, so there are a lot of benefits that come out of it.
Yeah. 100%. That's why I feel like, you know, you asked me if I would do this again. Absolutely. Like, I feel honored. I also feel an obligation and a burden to have to tell this. And it goes further. It gets into the BOP and FSA issues and a whole slew of things that I'm trying to bring in front of Congress right now, because this is stuff that needs to be known. And I don't ask people to take my word for it. There's people on here that may not believe me. You know, you've got your views on how everything breaks down, like everyone. But what I ask for is to, hey, let us bring this evidence to a committee, to Congress, and show it to them.
To expose the higher level game. So my thinking on this, hearing your story, and taking the evidence in from what we've done in the last 2 hours and hearing you, I do think there's some wrong that's definitely attributed to you. I mean, you even were going to plead to the charge of an assault. But I do think the more important thing is the game needs to be exposed. Even though Trump won and things are being corrected, I think the game needs to be exposed, because there's still people that don't understand that this game existed.
Right.
And they look at this narrative that was shaping up around the country. Remember, it's states like Minnesota where there was an effort to try to actually keep Donald Trump off the ballot.
Right.
Take away my option to even vote for the guy.
Yep.
Right? Or Jesse's, because Jesse really, really badly wanted to vote for the guy.
I was at the Supreme Court fighting it, so yeah, of course I want to make sure that I want to make sure that I could vote for Trump. It's unbelievable, and now with the hindsight that he won in such a landslide, it just shows how crazy these liberals were the whole time.
Right. Okay. Well, so I appreciate you sharing your story.
Yeah.
Right.
Appreciate you giving me the opportunity.
Yeah.
To do it. Yeah.
I mean, it's a fascinating story, and geez, it's like solitary confinement for that long. That's just outright torture.
It sucked.
The leftists are so interesting in this country. We'll talk about this in the video we do later, but the Never Again bill, which was actually heard in a committee today, there was an amendment by a Democrat. 3 amendments to Drew Roach's Never Again bill. And they were accusing Drew, the author of the bill, really it was Eric Mortensen, he had just copied it and brought it into a new one. They accused him of ignoring a bunch of rights, because there's a Bill of Rights for what happens during an emergency, and ignoring some important Bill of Rights like freedom of press and freedom from excessive bail. And Drew Roach had a great response to it in the sense that I welcome this amendment because, yes, I'm for those rights as well. And the Democrats, it's like their heads exploding. Like, wait a second, because they care about the BLM rioters and the rights that were denied there. But so do we. Yeah. Like, we believe in civil rights. But the left doesn't seem to understand it. They'll argue for a hardened, violent criminal, like convicted, by the way, post-conviction, to maybe even get out of jail or just let theft go, which is very popular in big cities. They'll say that, but for you, I don't think they shed a single tear that you spend 150 days in confinement, when it's like that is like literally a torture.
Oh, they take glee in it. We've gotten letters like on a regular basis. All the Jan 6ers get letters from the left, laughing at us, death threats. We love we love those. Those are our favorite. But yeah.
Oh, Billy 22's got a great point. And what was the message being sent on J6? It is, do not question our elections. And that's the other thing. We were gaslit. There's no fraud. And by the way, once again, it's the evidence is on Trump and Trump Nation to provide the evidence that the election was stolen. But the evidence that it was rigged is 100% out there, right? We know at this point they buried, and when I say they, the federal government buried, Trump didn't drain the swamp. The swamp actually operated under him to bury a story on his opponent by going to social media. And then, of course, once Biden took office, and this was another big reason why I voted for Trump, is that literally they were going to assault our First Amendment rights to free speech, and they were doing it actively on social media to the point they even took Action for Liberty's page away. 50,000 people disenfranchised on a social media platform because the White House went to Facebook and said, we can't have these kind of people talking about this stuff on COVID, which we were all probably right about at this point, right?
Absolutely.
We didn't know at the time, but we were we knew at the time, but it wasn't out there in the public. We were right about it.
And that's one of the reasons I showed up, was that exactly that. My Facebook.
Well, the problem is guys like me have little kids and a lot. I mean, not that you didn't have things that, to risk, but like I can't imagine, to me, it's just like, don't even go. And that's the sad thing, because we should be able to participate in the process. But I'm like, why would I go to D.C.? No way. I mean, look what they would do. Like, I saw what they did to you guys. I'm like, geez, holy shit.
And this doesn't even scratch the surface. 2 hours of this, you would need to. I would need to sit here for days.
Owen Schroyer was a journalist.
Yeah, we had plenty of those.
Right.
Plenty of them.
Right.
They were just independent journalists.
By the way, we agree with freedom of the press, 100%.
Right.
100% agree with freedom of the press.
Yeah.
That is so important.
We don't agree with USAID sending the money to that press.
No, we agree with a free and open press, not a government-funded press.
Right.
Well, thanks so much for coming, Brian. I appreciate you sharing your story. We'll keep in touch with you, and maybe we'll have you back and finish some parts of the story, and I'm sure there's going to be more that comes out. We're gonna do our post show. So if you're a premium subscriber, I'll post the link here again in the chat. You go to truthhurtsnews.com, click on support or subscribe or support us on the top of the page. Or if you're on Rumble, you can click on join. We'll start that in about 3 minutes. I gotta go walk Brian out, and then we'll do that for about 15-20 minutes, the post show. We'd love to hear your thoughts on what it is, and then Jesse and I want to talk a little bit about some of the big news that's hitting. I didn't want to distract the show with the news, but I do want to get it to our premium subscribers.
There's some stuff going on.
There's some stuff going on today. It's very, very fascinating. We would have had a full, lively show today if it wasn't for this great material.
Right?
So,
and follow me on X, at Brian Mock, PPOW. You'll see what I'm up to.
PPOW?
PPOW, Political Prisoner of War.
All right, so at Brian Mock, MOCK, PPOW. I like it. I'm not following you, so I'll have to follow you too.
There you go.
A lot of people seem to have enjoyed the show, and I thank you guys. And then, of course, most of the people watch after the fact, so I think people hopefully will sit down for the 2+ hours to do it. So if you're a premium subscriber, just stick around for about 3 minutes. We'll be back on set live. Or if you're not a premium subscriber, go ahead and subscribe now. I put it in the Rumble comment section. Otherwise, you can go to truthhurtsnews.com, click on the link at the top that says support us. For everyone else, we'll be back on Tuesday. Thanks to our great sponsors, Warren Wessel of Keller Williams Realty, John Galt Mortgage Company. Go to johngaltmortgage.com, and Alpine Cabinetry in St. Cloud, Minnesota. Take care. We'll see you on Tuesday. For our premium subscribers, we'll see you in 3 minutes. Bye.